Marvel, fishing in the skies. Starting with the Ghost Swordsman legacy, this video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 276. The system's voice sounded. This time there was no acceleration buff blessing, and he could only wait for 12 hours. Kinluo did not look at the fishhook that was thrown into the water again. Instead, he clicked on the 2 new rewards he had obtained. Teleportation, from the Dragon Ball world. Teleportation used by Sun Wukong in the Dragon Ball world, granted by the Yedran Starman. The range of teleportation depends on the user's perception range. The perception of extremely weak existence cannot be teleported. Kinluo looked at the introduction of teleportation, immediately spread the wave perception. In order to test whether the wave perception can cooperate with it, Kinluo first sensed the empty room in the apartment. After locking the location, his mind moved. Kinluo instantly appeared in the empty room in the apartment, looking at the familiar environment around him. The corners of his mouth rose slightly. This teleportation is more useful than he thought, especially with the existence of wave perception. The two cooperate with each other perfectly. There is no need to pause and concentrate before using it like Goku in Dragon Ball. The mind moved again. In an instant, Kinluo appeared on the roof of Tony's mansion. Tony was not sleeping at this time. He was still busy with the nano armor. With the help of Ethan and the ideas provided by Kinluo, the prototype of the nano armor has been initially formed, but it is still a big project to perfect it. Sir, there is an unknown person. Mr. Kinluo is on the roof. Scam, what are you doing suddenly? Jarvis, turn on the defense counterattack. Tony, who was working hard on the nano armor, heard Jarvis' words, rolled his eyes, and directly issued an attack order. Hey, you don't have to play so big. I'm just strolling. Why do you come up with knives and guns? Kinluo sat on Tony's sofa with his legs crossed, his face full of helpless smiles. You guys have screwed us too badly. The alliance of 2 leading industries. Do you know how many things have to be dealt with? Little Pepper hasn't slept yet, and you said this damn nano armor. My hair is almost falling out, perhaps because of lack of sleep. Tony seemed very irritable. He grabbed his hair hard, and suddenly a few fluttering hair appeared in his hand. Looking at Tony, whose hair had obviously become a little sparse, Kinluo suppressed his smile and waved his hand, saying, okay, stop complaining here, as if you didn't get any benefits. For the sake of your hairline crisis, I'll help you. Kinluo waved his hand. The ghost array, the soul of the sword Kazan, was suspended in Tony's office. This time Kinluo was quite sincere, and the ghost power he used was very sufficient. The soul of the sword Kazan can last at least 3 days, and the increased spirit and strength will be 50% higher than usual. That's about right. Tony's tired eyes shone slightly, and the whole person stretched comfortably, and once again devoted himself to the research of nano armor. He didn't look at Kinluo again, seeing Tony in a state of almost crazy demons. Kinluo was also at a loss whether to laugh or cry. He shook his head and stopped looking for fun. His figure flashed and the whole person returned to the pavilion. Tony looked at the place where Kinluo disappeared, and the corner of his eye twitched involuntarily. What kind of power is this? Space transfer? Can't this bastard get stronger slower? Sitting on the stone bench in the pavilion, Kinluo checked the highest level reward so far. Law of Heaven and Earth. Law of Heaven and Earth. From the world of Journey to the West, one of Sun Wukong's strongest magical powers. Using this magical power will allow the caster to transform into heaven and earth. Imitate the scale of heaven and earth. Imitate the sky. Imitate the earth. Be as tall as the sky, as wide as the earth. It is a skill that can be as high as heaven and earth, and belongs to the great magical power. Looking at the skill introduction, Kinluo inexplicably has a sense of fragrance. Good guy, such a magical power is a bit strong. If Kinluo remembers correctly, Law of Heaven and Earth is not one of the 72 changes of the earth. In Journey to the West, the people who have used it, not everyone who can, are Lang Shen and Bull Demon King, except Monkey King. The strength of these three is quite powerful. The demigod level reward of Law of Heaven and Earth is so powerful, then the myth level reward must be at the level of the 36 changes of the Heavenly Gang. Looking at the newly acquired powerful strength, Kinlawo couldn't help but feel itchy for a while. Chapter 197 Kamartage, Teach the Bear Apprentice a Lesson. Such a powerful magical power. If you don't try it, you will really lose sleep. But where to try it is a problem. It must not work in the city. The law of heaven and earth directly becomes bigger, and a casual sneeze may destroy people's life savings. It's really a bit inhumane. Tony's manner is good and the place is big enough, but Tony is at a critical period now. If he dares to make trouble, I'm afraid Tony will go crazy. Suddenly Kinlawo had a wonderful idea. Now SHIELD seems to have built an airship, for fear of being censored. If you stand on it and use your magical powers, wouldn't it be beautiful? In SHIELD, Nick Fury, who was about to start the newly built airship, suddenly sneezed several times in a row. His dark face was full of surprise. Did he catch a cold? No way. As a level 10 agent, he himself had forgotten how long he hadn't been sick. At this time, Hill suddenly pushed the door open and said nervously, "Boss, something happened to the cosmic cube." Ancient One, who was meditating in Kamartage, suddenly felt a spiritual power detection. This spiritual power did not have any malicious intent, and it was very familiar. Ancient One opened his eyes and showed a puzzled expression on his face. I don't understand why Kinlawo suddenly sent his spiritual power to her. Ancient One's disciples, Mordo and others also noticed Kinlawo's powerful spiritual power. Doctor Strange, who has made some achievements in magic, looked at the sky in surprise, with a bit of nervousness. "Master, is there any powerful existence going to invade?" Mordo felt the emotional changes of the apprentices behind him, gritted his teeth, pushed open the door of Ancient One and asked. However, at this moment, Kinlawo suddenly appeared on the stool opposite Ancient One. With a smile on her face, she said, "Don't get me wrong, I don't mean to invade, I'm just a guest." Seeing this, Gui's eyes lit up slightly. As a master who is good at space secrets, she could naturally see that Kinlawo came to Kamartage through some kind of space power, and this power is very strange, which she has never seen before. It seems to be more convenient than her space secrets, but it is not aggressive. Madu, who was standing at the door, was shocked when he saw Kinlawo. Chapter 277. However, at this moment, Kinlawo heard the system's prompt sound. Ripples began to appear on the golden fishing rod in front of him. Estimated fishing time, 6 o'clock 0 hours and 3 seconds. Fishing is about to end. Kinlawo's eyes suddenly lit up. His heart began to get excited. Just now, he was only thinking about Old Carter's affairs, and did not notice the countdown of fishing. "Old Carter, I will send you back to rest first. When I finish my work here, I will discuss the matter of restoring strength with you," Kinlawo said, and directly set up Old Carter and sent him back to the room. Then he returned to the pavilion of the apartment again. At the same time, his mind moved, and the sword energy in his body burst out. A sword formation was formed to block all the surrounding space. The whole process took Kinlawo less than 2 seconds. Watching the countdown completely return to 0, Kinlawo's heart was lifted up. The fishing rod was suddenly lifted up at this time. The familiar golden light ball appeared. It was suspended above the lake. However, this time the golden ball did not break like before. Suddenly, a wave of waves rose on the lake. Some strange power enveloped the golden ball. The golden aura began to twist and change. At the same time, the system prompt sounded in Kinlawo's ears. Ding. Detecting super amplification buff. Reward level increased. Dot. The golden light of the ball twisted quickly, just like the lights in the dance floor. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, 5 colors began to shine in sequence. When the 5th color appeared, the power surrounding the ball dissipated completely. Sure enough, it worked. 5 color level reward. Wait, 5 colors? Isn't it 7 colors? The excited Kinlawo suddenly realized that the myth level reward should be 7 colors. Why is the reward this time 5 colors? The system is also starting to be short of weight! Exclamation mark. Snap. A familiar crisp sound. The colorful ball of light shattered. Something like a monkey was suspended in the air, and then merged into Kinluo's mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining the demigod level reward. Magic power, law of heaven and earth. The voice of the system sounded, and Kinluo was a little confused. Demigod level reward? Exclamation mark. Where is the promised mythical level reward? Exclamation mark. System, explain to me. Why is it demigod level? Kinluo gritted his teeth and asked angrily. It's not so bad. Missing the mythical level is fine, but how come there is a demigod level reward? Question mark. Where is this level of reward? Kinluo seriously suspected that this was a temporary reward added by the system. Chapter 196 Law of Heaven and Earth. Instant movement. Ding. Mythical level items cannot be obtained through buff gain. Please keep working hard. Kinluo. / You should have said earlier that it can't be gained through buff. Why didn't you say it earlier? What's going on now? It's a rip-off. It's all in vain. Kinluo really felt like riding a roller coaster tonight. It's really 1 second in heaven and 1 second in hell. First, he almost got a mythical fishing rod. After the buff gain, there was an extra demigod level item from Lazy. Can't you be more generous and give him a mythical existence? He has never eaten pork, so let him see the pig run. Kinluo now feels that he is extremely resentful. Not counting his own strength, if he burps now, he will definitely become a fierce ghost in an instant. Kinluo let out a long breath, silently chanted the Shushan meditation mantra, and suppressed the resentment in his heart. In any case, the fact is already like this. Let's study the magical power that I got first. The law of heaven and earth seems to be a very NB magical power. However, at this moment, the fishing rod in front of Kinluo suddenly shook again. Then a purple ball flew out. Ding! Super fishing buff detected. Obtained additional rare level reward. Instant movement. Super fishing buff times remaining. 1/2. Ding! Fishing ended. Special buff triggered. No consumption for this fishing. Do you want to fish again? Yes. No. 2 consecutive system prompts sounded. Kinluo's eyes, which were originally silent, lit up again. The extra reward is great. He needs this kind of teleportation now. Although it is not a very powerful existence, it can definitely save a lot of trouble. The fact that fishing is triggered without consumption really surprised Kinluo. He really didn't expect this buff to take effect. After all, the level of her fishing this time is not low. A legendary fishing rod, a demigod level reward. With the habit of the system to cheat, it will definitely not give him this opportunity to trigger. Unexpectedly, the system has a conscience this time. His cold heart finally got some comfort. Humphrey, fishing again. Kinluo snorted coldly and decisively chose to fish again. Ding! Fishing in the heavens and the worlds begins. Golden fishing rod. Estimated fishing time, 12 o'clock 11:59 and 59 seconds. Chapter 278. A creaking sound came from the door. Hawkeye led more than a dozen fully armed agents into the laboratory. Because he ran too fast. Even with Hawkeye's physique, his panting became heavier. Doctor, what's the situation? Hawkeye walked quickly to Selvig and asked nervously. I don't know, but I have a bad feeling. Barton, get ready for the battle. Selvig shook his head and looked at the cosmic cube with vigilance. It was dawn. Kinluo opened his eyes. At this time, old Carter, who was wearing a sports suit, stood beside him and looked at him in surprise. What's wrong? Old Carter, come out for morning exercise? Kinluo looked at old Carter and asked with a smile. When people get old, they sleep less. It's just right to come out and breathe some fresh air. Old Carter also smiled slightly, and then asked curiously, why are you here? Nothing, just practicing. Don't do morning exercises for a while, go back to the room. I may have something to deal with. Kinluo waved his hand and said with a serious face. He didn't know what kind of thing would appear when fishing. If it was something with a particularly large energy fluctuation, it would probably cause unnecessary impact to old Carter. Now the flame of old Carter's power is almost extinguished. It's easy for him to get hurt if he's not careful. What's the matter? You need my help. Although my power is very weak, I can help you a little, old Carter said with a flash of red light in his eyes. Kinluo looked at old Carter and felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. Don't look at old Carter when he said this, He was very confident, but the loneliness in his eyes can never be concealed, no matter what old Carter is. He was once a powerful existence, even if he is not as good as Mephisto. But in hell, he is stronger than the so-called seven devils. Ordinary demons are even stronger, but now he has fallen into an ordinary person with only a little bit of extraordinary power. With such a big gap, even if old Carter is open-minded, he must feel that he is a hero in his twilight years. Kinlawo wants to help old Carter, but is there any good way? Because old Carter has been symbiotic with the spirit of vengeance for many years, his body has become the shape of the spirit of vengeance, and he can't control ordinary power at all. Things like serum are also very limited for him. However, at this moment, Kinlawo's mind suddenly flashed. The image of Carlo, the sixth ghost god, appeared in front of him, the same as the flame of hell, and the flame of hell is definitely not worse than the hellfire of the spirit of revenge. To be precise, the flame of hell is more powerful than the hellfire. Even the flame of redemption after the Ghost Rider awakens the angel in the later period is a little worse than the flame of hell. If he copies the mark of the sixth ghost god in the body of old Carter, can he let old Carter regain the power of hellfire? It seems that this matter is very controllable. The only trouble is that the sixth ghost god is out of Kinlawo's control, and it is very likely to cause trouble. But Kinlawo has confidence in old Carter. Beings who can get along with the spirit of revenge for hundreds of years must have goodwill. Otherwise, old Carter would have been swallowed up long ago, and he can still survive until now. Kinlawo looked at old Carter with brighter eyes. Chapter 195 Old Carter's Hope, Demigod Level? Is there something wrong with me? Old Carter was obviously a little scared by Kinlawo's eyes, and couldn't help asking. No, you are fine. I just thought of a way. Maybe you can regain your strength, Kinlawo said with a serious face. Regain strength? Old Carter's heart moved. A look of desire flashed in his eyes, and his fists clenched. Because of too much force, the wrinkles on his hands were stretched flat. Alas, finally, old Carter sighed, shook his head and said, forget it. I can't bear other powers now, unless I plunder the spirit of vengeance again. But Johnny is likely to be in danger of his life. I can't do that. I can see what you said, but have you ever thought about it? If I can give you the power of hellfire that is similar to hellfire, will you regain your power then? Kinlawo said, slightly opening his palm, and a ball of dark flame appeared in his palm. Old Carter looked at the dark purple flame, and his eyes almost popped out. Although his strength has been exhausted, his perception and vision are still there. He can see that the flame in Kinlawo's palm is definitely a hellfire. The hell breath above can't deceive people, but old Carter racked his brains and couldn't think of how there is such a flame power in hell. If there is, he must have seen it. After all, he was once a man who had traveled to hell. Hundreds of years of memory flashed quickly, and old Carter was sure that he had never seen such a powerful hellfire. Don't think about it. It's true that the hell flame is the power of hell, but it's not the hell of this world. Feel it. Can you control such a flame? Kinlawo saw the look on old Carter's face and said with a smile. Old Carter nodded, and a ball of orange-red hell flame emerged from his finger and condensed on his fingertips. The next second, a section of old Carter's finger was burned into the shape of a finger bone. The moment the burning finger bone came into contact with the hell flame, it seemed that there was some conflict. The two forces collided and consumed each other. In the end, the hell flame in Kinlawo's palm was better. The hell flame on old Carter's finger bones was gradually replaced by the hell flame. At the same time, old Carter's face showed a look of pain, and beads of sweat slid down his forehead. The power of the hell flame is not so easy to bear. He is different from the normal hell flame. The flame power of the hell flame is like a maggot attached to the bone, which can constantly erode a person's body, and even the soul. Kinlawo looked at the scene in front of him. His brows wrinkled slightly, and the blood in his body was running secretly. If the situation is unclear, he will immediately remove the power of the nether flame and use blood and chi diversion to treat old Carter. I hope it will be in time. Time passed by. Just when Kinlawo sensed that old Carter was gradually reaching his limit, the nether flame in his hand suddenly covered old Carter's palm. In an instant, old Carter's entire palm was replaced by the nether flame, and the hand bones burning with dark purple flames appeared in front of Kinluo. "Is this successful?" Kinluo looked at old Carter in surprise and asked, and at the same time it was a little incredible. He thought that old Carter could master the power of the nether flame, but he didn't expect that old Carter would be able to master the nether flame so quickly. "You know, the nether flame is the power of ghosts and gods, and it's the 6th ghost god who can be ranked. It's still not completely mastered. It can only be said that a little hope. I can feel that this flame contains a certain will. If I can get the recognition of that will, it can be regarded as truly mastering this power," old Carter said breathlessly, and now he seemed to have just finished a strenuous exercise. The whole person was about to collapse. Just as he was speaking, the palm that had turned into hand bones gradually returned to its original state, and the dark purple flame dissipated into the air. Kinluo nodded thoughtfully after hearing this. Indeed, if old Carter could not get Carlo's approval, it would be absolutely impossible for him to control the nether flame. Chapter 279. But it was still gliding forward slowly. Looking at the approaching mythical plate, Kinluo was sweating on his forehead. It couldn't be a mythical fishing. If that was the case, then it would be great. The mythical level was upgraded to another level. What a devastating thing that would be. However, when the pointer was less than a millimeter away from the mythical fishing rod, it suddenly stopped. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining the legendary fishing rod. Kinluo looked at the turntable in front of him, and his heart suddenly felt empty. He really wanted to rush forward and bend the pointer forward 1 millimeter, but Kinluo knew this behavior would not work at all. He tried it when he first went fishing. Kinluo couldn't touch the lottery turntable at all, and that thing had no entity at all. Legendary level is legendary level. Originally, his biggest expectation was legendary level. In the final analysis, people are greedy. After receiving the fishing rod, Kinluo said a little disappointedly, "The system starts fishing." Ding! Fishing in the heavens and the worlds begins. Golden fishing rod expected fishing time 12:00:11:59:59. Ding! Affected by the acceleration buff expected fishing time 6:00:05:59:59. Looking at the golden fishing rod that was constantly floating for fishing, Kinluo decisively sat down to meditate and practice. Now he couldn't sleep. He was looking forward to what kind of rewards he would get after the legendary level was upgraded. On the island where the cosmic cube was studied, Coulson passed all the inspections with a gloomy face, came to the inside of the island. "What's the matter, Coulson? Shouldn't you be on vacation? What are you doing here?" After the last inspection was passed, Hawkeye suddenly fell from the sky and looked at Coulson in front of him and said with some surprise. Hearing this, Coulson's originally gloomy face became even gloomier. "Vacation? I don't know what vacation means in my life. Only people who don't contribute will choose vacation. Work makes me happy, Barton. If you are too idle, I can help you arrange some work." After saying that, Coulson walked towards the laboratory on the island without looking back. Hawkeye was left alone in the wind. "I don't understand why the good old man Coulson is so angry today." At this time, the agent who came with Coulson came to Hawkeye and whispered, "Our boss was originally dating his girlfriend, and his pants were taken off, but he was called by Director Fury." Hawkeye suddenly realized what he meant when he heard it, and looked at Coulson's leaving back with pity. Chapter 194. The Rubik's Cube is abnormal, and the Hellfire is regained. Coulson seemed to feel the pity from Hawkeye behind him at this time. His pace suddenly accelerated a bit. He couldn't help but curse Nick Fury in his heart, especially the other party's face that was obviously trying to make things difficult for him. It made Coulson a little crazy. "Damn you, boiled egg. You've pushed me too far. I'm not going to do it anymore." After saying two harsh words, Coulson couldn't help but smile bitterly. It's hard to get into S.H.I.E.L.D., and it's even harder to get out, especially for a high-ranking person like him who knows so many secrets of S.H.I.E.L.D. Even if he wants to get out of here, Nick Fury's character will probably not let him see the next day's sun behind his back. Even if he agrees on the surface, he won't use his life to test the bottom line of boiled egg. Coming back to his senses, Coulson was like a deflated ball, muttering to himself with a little loneliness, "I hope Amy can forgive me. I don't know if she really wanted to break up last time." Hawkeye looked at Coulson's back and shook his head helplessly, walked towards the monitoring room. Now the research on the cosmic cube has reached a critical moment. There must be no accidents. Even if their location is almost unknown, Hawkeye will not relax his vigilance. Stroking his new longbow and new arrows, Hawkeye's eyes became extremely sharp. If someone dares to cause trouble, he must let the other party know what cruelty is. However, just when Hawkeye was secretly angry, the cosmic cube suddenly changed, and the blue light began to flash. The frequency was gradually increasing. A sharp sound rang out in the monitoring room, and then the monitoring screen turned into a snowflake. The entire laboratory also flashed a warning red light. Hawkeye's face instantly became extremely ugly. He turned over and rushed out of the monitoring room, running towards the laboratory. In the laboratory, Coulson, who had just arrived, almost bit his teeth. He just arrived. As a result, the cosmic cube had such a problem. This is really a pitfall. He seemed to have imagined that after the matter was over, he would be questioned by Nick Fury. Everyone in the laboratory was very nervous. They watched the movement of the cosmic cube with vigilance and worry. They have been studying for so long and are very clear about the terrifying energy contained in the cosmic cube. It is no exaggeration to say that once the energy in the cosmic cube explodes, let alone this laboratory, even the entire island will be destroyed in an instant. It was too late for them to escape now. They could only pray that the cosmic cube would settle down. Dr. Selvig looked at the cosmic cube with an extremely ugly expression. This was the third time ever since the cosmic cube had an abnormal movement before. In addition to this time, there was another abnormal movement before. However, the previous two abnormal movements were very short. They were over in just a few seconds. He didn't even have a chance to study them, but this time it lasted for such a long time. It was as long as a minute. He had a bad feeling. The previous abnormal movement seemed to be something testing, and now that testing thing is about to officially appear. Chapter 280. Venom sensed Spider-Man's inner thoughts, and as if stimulated, he roared in dissatisfaction. "You can read my mind?" Spider-Man's face became even uglier, and he spoke in a panic. "Haha," Venom sneered. "Of course, I have read all your memories. For example, 2 days ago, when you were talking to the guy called M. Enough. Get back here, otherwise, I will fight you." Spider-Man was furious, and he pressed Venom's head with both hands to stop him from speaking. Kinlowo's gossip fire burned slightly in his heart, but after thinking about it, he decided not to stimulate Spider-Man at this time, otherwise, he might really commit suicide out of shame. Young people, who hasn't seen youth before? Those who understand will understand. Okay, let's leave it at that. How you get along in the future is up to you, but I don't want any discordant factors around me. Also, Venom, put away some unnecessary little thoughts and stay in Peter's body peacefully. I guarantee that you will be able to eat and drink well, but if I know that you have any other ideas, you won't even have the chance to go to hell this time," Kinlowo said, and a ball of red flame rose in his palm, which was the fluctuating fire. Feeling the flame that burned the surrounding space and was a little distorted, Venom didn't dare to say the word no, and quickly stuck his head out from Spider-Man's shoulder and nodded desperately. Alas, Spider-Man could only nod his head resignedly when he saw this. He was used to being submissive. If Venom hadn't been so pitiful, he probably wouldn't have resisted so much. Kinlowo took Spider-Man all the way back home. The depressed Spider-Man went back to his room and shut himself up. Kinlowo found May Parker and told him about Venom. Who would have thought that May Parker did not resist as Kinlowo imagined? Instead, he was very interested in Venom's ability. He also proposed to try to improve himself after being possessed by Venom. Kinlowo decisively rejected May Parker's idea. As long as he is a man, he probably wouldn't want a parasite that can change into 1,000 forms to parasitize his woman, right? Chapter 193. Take out the fishing rod and start fishing. Night fell. The entire hero apartment became silent. With the help of Venom, Spider-Man took a multi-pronged approach and successfully completed the punishment exercises. Looking at the thick stack of exercises, Spider-Man stretched his body hard, and suddenly he felt that venom was not as hateful as he imagined. It really helped him a lot, otherwise, he probably wouldn't be able to sleep tonight. "Hey, kid, do you want to go see what Brother Kin is doing?" Venom poked his head out with an obvious smirk on his face. "Asshole, if you can't live, don't come and pull me up." Brother Kin has very sharp ears. Not to mention getting close, he can hear our conversation clearly. Spider-Man shook his head desperately and scolded in a low voice. Hee, I'm just talking." Venom laughed dryly and then retracted into Spider-Man's body. Kinluo, who was sitting in the pavilion, looked at the direction of his home and couldn't help shaking his head. Sure enough, the two of them have CP attributes. It hasn't been long since they got along. Kinluo took a deep breath. The system starts to extract fishing rods. Ding. Affected by special buff. This time the fishing rod is extracted. The probability of fishing with white fishing rods is reduced. Ding. Affected by special buff. This time the fishing rod is extracted. The probability of fishing with rare and above fishing rods is increased. 2 consecutive system prompts sounded. The fishing rod panel appeared in front of Kinluo again. This time, the white fishing rod plate was almost left with only a trace, which was about the same as the probability of the colorful mythical fishing rod. The rare and legendary sections almost occupy half of the fishing panel. The rest is occupied by random fishing rods and blue fishing rods. As for the mythical level panel, there is no need to say more. It is really doubled. It is almost as thick as 2 strands of hair. Opening parenthesis. Kinluo looked at the fishing rod panel in front of him. His heartbeats couldn't help but speed up a bit. Good man, when has he ever been so rich? The panels of rare and legendary fishing rods are usually pitifully small. There is no need to say more about the mythical level. He has only seen it in his dreams. Sure enough, it is different with the bonus of buff. But there is one thing that is more uncomfortable. At present, the important characters that have appeared in Marvel are almost the same. As for the rest, I don't know how many years it will take for one to appear. But Kinluo thought about it and didn't worry about it. That is, even if the key characters in the plot don't show up now, can't he go find them? As for butterfly wings and the like, damn it, even if the butterfly effect appears because of him, with his current strength, he can completely turn the tide. There is no need to be afraid. When the hell is over, he can prepare to go to some places in his memory and pull out those key characters. For example, Wanda. When I watched the movie, Wanda was definitely one of Kinluo's regrets. I finally found an arm to rely on, but it turned out to be a prosthesis robot. In the original plot, in order to stop Thanos' destructive plan, Wanda had to kill her lover with her own hands at the request of Vision. But Thanos used the Time Stone to turn back time. She watched her lover die tragically again, and was taken away by Thanos from the Mind Stone. Wanda survived all kinds of painful experiences, but in the end, SWORD's act of decomposing Vision led to Wanda's complete collapse. She was immersed in her own world and couldn't extricate herself. But now that Kinluo has appeared, Wanda's tragedy is doomed to not happen again. Vision also it won't appear. Kinluo looked at the turntable in front of him. He rubbed his hands vigorously. After calming down the tension in his heart, he immediately started the system lottery. The lottery wheel began to spin at a very fast speed. Every time he saw the golden panel pass the pointer, Kinluo's heart couldn't help but speed up. Half a minute. Kinluo felt like half a year. But the speed of the roulette wheel slowed down after all. White fishing rod, pass. Blue fishing rod, pass. Purple fishing rod, pass. The fishing rods were crawling on the legendary plate, and the speed had almost stagnated. Chapter 281. Kinluo couldn't help but be a little surprised when he saw this. He originally thought that Spider-Man was angry about Venom affecting him, but who would have thought that he was angry about the little girl Venom was staying with? Don't look at Venom. He was as timid as a grandson when facing Kinluo, but when facing Spider-Man, this guy immediately stood up. He showed a humane mocking look on his face and said, "So what if it was me who did it? Blame it on you being too cowardly. The enemy is in front of you, and you still want to hold back. I really couldn't stand it, so I decided to help you." In fact, you should thank me. Hee hee hee, pa. Venom's disgusting laughter just sounded, and Kinlawo slapped him back without saying a word. His head was smashed again, and it took a while of squirming before it returned to normal. If you want to laugh, laugh normally. Don't pretend to be a villain. Do you want me to send you down to meet those who laughed at me like this? Kinlawo stared at Venom, his words full of warnings. Venom, who was so arrogant just now, immediately became like a good boy. By the way, what's the matter with that little girl? Tell the truth. If you lie, I can sense it immediately, and then I will send you directly to hell to see Mephisto. I am very familiar with him. If you don't believe it, you can try it. Kinlawo threw the black substance back to Venom and said, I'm so hungry. Beast, I'll kill you. As soon as Venom said this, Spider-Man exploded, and the power on his body surged. An invisible force emerged on his fist, and his knuckles began to show signs of blackening. Kinlawo's eyes lit up when he saw this. He didn't expect that after being stimulated by Venom, Spider-Man actually crossed the threshold of armed color that had been stuck before. It was really a pleasant surprise. Sure enough, Venom and Spider-Man are a true CP. Feeling the power of Spider-Man's punch, Venom was also startled, and quickly said, I didn't kill that little girl. When I saw her, she was already dead. I was just too hungry. As a result, before I had a full meal, you appeared, and I lived in your body. Spider-Man's momentum weakened a little after hearing this, but he didn't completely believe what Venom said. He looked at Venom with some doubts, and then turned to look at Kinlawo with an inquiring look. In fact, it's no wonder that Spider-Man doesn't trust it. Now with Venom's ferocious appearance, no one believes that he is not a villain. Kinlawo nodded to Spider-Man. He is telling the truth and not lying. Hearing Kinlawo's words, Spider-Man was relieved. HMPH, he snorted coldly, glared at Venom, and stood back beside Kinlawo. Brother Kin, I know I was wrong. Can you please not kill me and give me a way out? I haven't hurt humans since I came to Earth. Venom looked at Kinlawo and said with a pleading look. Now he was really scared. He really didn't want to experience the feeling of approaching death again. Am I not a human? Spider-Man was so angry that his teeth were itching. He glared at Venom and said. However, Venom didn't even look at him. His eyes were always focused on Kinlawo. It's okay to let you live, but I'm afraid your freedom will be restricted. Kinlawo rubbed his chin and said with a meaningful smile on his face. Chapter 192 Stuffed it back again. Unexpected harvest. Venom looked at Kinlawo and didn't understand what he meant by his words. However, Spider-Man had a bad premonition at this time, especially when he saw Kinlawo's half-smile expression. The premonition became stronger, because every time Kinlawo cheated someone, he would mostly show such an expression. Brother Kin, what do you mean by what you said just now? Do you want to keep such a guy? Spider-Man suppressed his uneasiness and asked. Although Venom was a little dissatisfied with Spider-Man, he didn't say much. He just prayed silently in his heart that Kinlawo would not treat him too cruelly. Kinlawo showed a sly smile on his face, and then grabbed the Venom in front of him. Venom subconsciously wanted to resist, but after feeling the power contained in Kinlawo's palm, it immediately withdrew its resistance and turned into a soft black gelatinous substance, allowing Kinlawo to hold it in his hand. Gulp. The little spider seemed to realize something, swallowed his saliva, and subconsciously glanced at the city under his feet. At such a height, he shouldn't fall to death if he jumped down. When the little spider was still hesitating whether to jump or not, he looked up and found that Kinlawo was already standing in front of him with a smile, holding the ball of jelly venom in his hand. The spider's reaction had no effect at all. As soon as the little spider said a word, Kinlawo directly stuffed the venom into his mouth. However, the venom seemed to resist the little spider's body. Although it was stuffed into his mouth, it didn't seem to move forward. The swallowed little spider rolled his eyes. Venom, be honest, you have no choice. Little spider, you also need to obey me, otherwise, it won't work. Then, don't force me. Kinlawo's voice fell. Little spider and Venom shuddered almost at the same time. The next second, Venom turned directly into a pool of liquid and completely merged into little spider's body. The familiar black spider armor covered little spider's body again. Kinlawo clapped his hands in satisfaction. That's right, How perfect! A little spider let out a long breath. Looking at the black spider suit on his body, he really wanted to cry. Brother Kin, why did you do this? You drove it out just now, and I almost died in your hands. This little spider asked almost in a crying voice. Venom also shuddered involuntarily at this time. The scene of being forcibly expelled just now appeared in front of him again, and his heart was suddenly filled with fear. Kinlawo raised his hand, and a blood light suddenly emerged. The blood and chi diversion instantly repaired the damage on little spider's body. Kinlawo said with a smile, Peter, Brother Kin, I am doing this for your own good, not to trick you. When Spider-Man heard this, his eyes immediately became resentful. The last time he heard this was when his nightmare began. I'm serious. Venom and you have a deep connection. You will either become friends or enemies. There is almost no third possibility. Kinlawo said with a serious face. Then just kill. Spider-Man was halfway through his words and couldn't continue. As a non-killing person, he really couldn't kill Venom. Feeling Spider-Man's mood at this time, Venom's mood became a little complicated. Spider-Man's behavior was really hard for him to accept. Venom has greatly improved your strength. He can completely control his abilities and will no longer affect your mind. Kinlawo paused and said to Venom, Can you do it? Venom? Absolutely no problem. The spider logo on Spider-Man's chest protruded a small head and nodded heavily to Kinlawo. Ding. Plot character detected. Venom, alien parasite, acceleration buff obtained. When using a fishing rod to fish, the fishing time limit is shortened by half. Kinlawo's eyes lit up when he heard the system's prompt sound. He didn't expect such an unexpected gain. It seems that fishing is a must this time. The little spider saw this slightly weird scene. He couldn't help but frowned. Think about it. Anyone who has another existence in his body, who has cheated him and looks extremely ferocious, will probably feel a little disgusted. Hey, I'm a well-known handsome guy in the tribe. I have priority. Do you think I'm the same as you? You're still a little chicken. And I even have a son. Chapter 282. And guaranteed a rich life for their father and son. What else is there to be entangled about? Kinlawo couldn't help but sigh secretly. There is a great terror between life and death, which can really make a person change drastically. When talking about his current life, Kinlawo could clearly see the light in Norman Osborn's eyes, which was the light of happiness. Of course, these are all later. Kinlawo took Spider-Man and flew towards the hero apartment. On the way, Spider-Man looked at Kinlawo and wanted to say something but never dared to speak. Kinlawo didn't pay much attention to him. Instead, he was thinking about fishing tonight. Although he was still a little uneasy, Kinlawo felt that the buff had been accumulated almost. As long as he was not extremely unlucky, he would definitely have a lot of gains this time. After finishing fishing, it was time to go to hell to make things happen. However, at this moment, Spider-Man didn't notice that several fine black threads appeared in his eyeballs. Soon the black silk thread spread, silently touched Kinlawo in front. When Spider-Man saw this scene, it was too late. He wanted to warn Kinlawo, but the black silk thread had already anticipated his thoughts. It instantly turned into a black ball and blocked his mouth. The little spider couldn't make any sound, and could only make strange noises with his nose. He raised his hand and wanted to warn Kinlawo, but the black silk thread still predicted his actions in advance. The dense black silk thread came out of his body, and in less than half a second, the little spider was tightly tied up like a big dumpling. Usually, the little spider used spider silk to tie people up, but now it was treated in the same way by the venom in its body. It's really a matter of karma, and I don't know if it's retribution. Kinlawo naturally noticed the abnormality of the little spider. After all, wave perception is not for nothing. But he didn't do anything, nor did he stop it, allowing those dense black threads to approach him. He wanted to see what tricks this venom wanted to play. Don't make noise. I'm thinking about something. If you make any more strange noises, you'll have to do double the homework. In order to prevent Venom from getting suspicious, Kinlawo pretended to be impatient and said. Spiderling was really going to cry now. He began to struggle desperately, with the muscles on his arms bulging high to resist the black silk thread that bound his body. Venom was very smart. He knew very well how powerful Spiderling was, so it didn't fight Spiderling head-on, but chose a special way to stick Spiderling's hands and feet. As long as Spiderling exerted force, The black silk thread would become extremely elastic and stretch with his strength, but as long as Spiderling slightly relieved his strength, the silk thread would immediately retract and bind Spiderling tightly. He was sweating profusely, but for a moment he couldn't do anything about the silk threads on his body. And the black silk threads that spread towards Kinluo had already touched his back. To be precise, they were already attached to his body. Feeling the constant invasion into his body, Kinluo finally understood what Venom was doing. My goodness, this is the rhythm of making him the host. I didn't expect Venom to have such a good vision. But Kinluo had no interest in Venom, even if it could improve the host's strength. At Kinluo's current level, the areas it could improve were really limited. Even with it, there might be a negative improvement. Kinluo's mind moved, and the sharp sword energy suddenly penetrated his body, directly cutting off and expelling the black silk threads that invaded the body. Just now, in order to allow Venom to approach smoothly, he released the protective sword energy around himself. Otherwise, how could those silk threads have a chance to get close to him? Venom was shocked when he saw that Kinluo had discovered his little trick. He knew very well that he was no match for the human in front of him in a head-on confrontation. So the silk threads surrounding the little spider began to retract quickly, like a receding tide. The speed was very fast. However, Kinluo appeared in front of the little spider in a flash. Wave burst. While grabbing his shoulders, he raised his hands high, and the violent wave power burst out. Since Spider-Man was firmly grasped by Kinluo, he was not shaken away. Spider-Man only felt a strong impact coming towards him. It kept hitting his body. Soon Spider-Man felt something leaving his body. Chapter 191 Teaching Venom a Lesson. Spider-Man's Wrath. Spider-Man shook his head in a trance, and felt a faint heat flow out of his nose, eyes, and ears. The unique metallic taste of blood came from his mouth. Spider-Man now looks extremely scary. His face turned red and purple, and blood slowly flowed out of his 7 orifices. It was as if he had taken a day of death. Haha. What's the matter, Venom? You can't hold it back? Kinluo sneered, looking at Venom behind Spider-Man, with a mocking expression on his face. At this time, Venom's state has completely separated from Spider-Man's body, but he didn't turn into that lump. Instead, he looked more like an evil version of Spider-Man, with black silk threads all over his body. His head was the classic look of Venom, and his mouth full of fangs flashed coldly. Crystal clear liquid could be seen flowing down faintly. Kinluo, when did you find me? Venom looked at Kinluo and asked with a trembling voice. The wave burst just now really made it feel the crisis of death and the powerlessness of not being able to control its own life. Kinluo also held back. Otherwise, the fragments of Venom would probably be standing in front of him now. The key is that Kinluo wants to exert his full strength, but the body of the little spider does not allow it. Didn't you see that it is bleeding from all 7 orifices now? It probably started when you left the body of that little girl, and you also called Kinluo, called Kin brother. Kinluo took a step forward, pulled the still confused little spider behind him, raised his hand and slapped him. Pa! A crisp sound rang out. Venom's head was directly slapped by Kinluo. The body also began to collapse on the flying sword. Kinluo couldn't help rolling his eyes when he saw this. He threw the black substance in his hand on the pool of venom and said, "Get out of here, don't play dead in front of me, be careful or I'll make your dream come true." As soon as the words fell, Kinluo's body burst out with a strong momentum. The surrounding clouds were instantly dispersed, and the whole sky became cloudless. The pool of venom was immediately frightened and shuddered all over. It quickly gathered its body and soon returned to its original state. The little spider was also impacted by Kinluo's momentum. The whole person woke up from the confused state, and seeing the extremely hideous appearance of the venom, he couldn't help but exclaimed, "OMG, what the hell is this? Why are you screaming like a little girl? You have experienced a lot of things. Can you be a little braver?" Kinluo glanced at the little spider with a little dissatisfaction. The sharp eyes immediately made the little spider shut his mouth, but the look in his eyes when he looked at the venom was still full of surprise. "His name is Venom, an alien parasite, and he has been parasitizing in your body for some time. When you were dealing with the evil Norman Osborn, your personality changed drastically, which was caused by him." Kinluo roughly told Spider-Man about it. Upon hearing this, Spider-Man's face showed a rare trace of anger. He was neither surprised nor afraid, and he glared at Venom. "Asshole, it turns out that it was all your fault. You almost killed Mr. Norman. And did you kill that little girl?" Chapter 283. Alas, finally, he sighed helplessly and said, "Mr. Kinlawo is right. The current Norman Osborn is about to change hands because of my several wrong decisions. Maybe I should concentrate on research. I am really not suitable for business." After saying the last sentence, Norman Osborn showed a self-deprecating smile on his face. Chapter 189. Strong Combination and Perfect Serum Method. Mr. Norman, don't belittle yourself. You just didn't get a capable helper. Look at Tony. If it weren't for Pepper's help, I guess Stark Industries wouldn't be much stronger than the current Osborn Industries, Kinlawo said with a smile, and didn't forget to insult Tony. Tony looked at Kinlawo's smiling face. He really wanted to strangle him to death. But after all, there were outsiders present, and Tony couldn't refute Kinlawo's face. He just secretly made up his mind that he must let Kinlawo feel the horror of artificial intelligence at that time. Wait until the critical moment. Come on a surprise attack, for example, the theme song of the horror movie of Dragon Country, scare him to death. Norman Osborn was not a fool. He waved his hand and said, "You are joking. Mr. Tony is a genius, much better than me." Kinlawo smiled and said, "Mr. Norman is polite. In fact, my purpose of coming here this time is to be a witness for both parties. I think what your Osborn Industries needs now is a strong and powerful ally. Tony's Stark Industries is definitely the most suitable candidate." Hearing this, Norman Osborn was not too surprised. He had expected the current situation. Norman Osborn didn't say much nonsense and said directly, "Mr. Kinlawo, I don't know what I need to pay. This is not a conversation between you and me. You need to talk to Ms. Potts in detail." Kinlawo shrugged his shoulders and said, "It doesn't matter. I can't agree to pay anything as long as Mr. Kinlawo helps me deal with the sequelae of the Green Goblin serum," Norman Osborn said, turning his head to look at Pepper and said again, "And clear out the traitors on the board of directors." When he said this, a trace of fierceness flashed in Norman Osborn's eyes. Don't think that without his evil personality, Norman Osborn is a kind person. To be able to get to this point today, Norman Osborn has stepped on other people's heads, but it's not much different. After all, not everyone has a special father like Tony. No problem, they are just some termites. Even if Mr. Norman doesn't speak, I don't plan to let them go," Pepper said in a flat tone. "Just a few words can basically declare those shareholders bankrupt. She definitely has the strength to do so." "Don't worry, Mr. Norman, even if you don't mention this matter, I will help you solve it after the cooperation. But if you want to solve Harry's genetic disease, there are currently two ways." Kinlawo looked at Norman Osborn and his son and said, "Which two?" Harry asked with some curiosity and trepidation. After all, the genetic disease is in him. Facing that unknown symptom, it would be a lie for Harry to say that he is not afraid. After all, it is fatal. The first is like your father, using the Green Goblin serum to produce an evil personality, and then I will help you get rid of the personality. This method has some disadvantages. When you get rid of the personality, even if the personality is not completely formed, it will cause some damage to your soul. Hearing Kinlawo's words, Norman Osborn's face changed slightly. He was not a fool, and he immediately understood that the severe pain in his head from time to time must be caused by soul damage. Regarding the mysterious existence of the soul, Norman Osborn had no way to solve it. He looked at Harry worriedly. Norman Osborn did not want his son to suffer the same suffering as himself. Norman Osborn asked quickly, "Mr. Kin, what is the second method?" Kinlawo stretched out two fingers with a serious face and said, "The second method is to find someone to work with you to improve the serum. After all, Harry's genetic disease is not fatal now. You can stop for a while unless it is absolutely necessary. To be honest, this serum is just a semi-finished product now." "Mr. Norman, you are too eager for success, but it is understandable. After all, your situation at that time did not give you too much time." What could Norman say after hearing this? He just smiled bitterly. He felt that Kinlawo's words were somewhat taken for granted. If the serum was so easy to perfect, he would not have been so anxious that he almost collapsed. It is almost impossible for Norman Osborn to perfect the serum in a short time with his ability. Old kin, you are talking about it simply. In terms of genetic research, Mr. Norman is absolutely an authority. If he can't perfect it, who else do you think can help? Tony saw the opportunity to mock Kinlawo and spoke decisively. Kinlawo smiled at this and waved his hand nonchalantly, saying, "Tony, when you were troubled by the new elements before, didn't you say that you were an authority? What was the result? Weren't you still saved by your father?" Tony showed a hint of embarrassment on his face when he heard this, and then he seemed to have thought of something and looked at Norman in surprise and asked, "Mr. Norman, could it be that your father left you any special legacy?" Norman Osborn showed confusion and surprise on his face when he heard this, but still shook his head. "My father didn't leave any legacy." Tony turned around and raised his eyebrows at Kinlawo. "Look." Kinlawo couldn't help twitching the corners of his mouth when he saw this. "What kind of brain circuit is this, Tony?" "I don't care who said Mr. Norman is the same as you. I mean to find a powerful helper. You know Dr. Banner, right? Bruce Banner." He had something similar to Mr. Norman, but his personality can be considered kind. He just has a bit of a naughty character. They were the two green monsters that once wreaked havoc in New York, and the Hulk who escaped in the end was Dr. Banner. Kinlawo said this. Everyone's faces showed surprise. It was no secret that the name of the Hulk had spread in their circle a long time ago, but they didn't expect that the Hulk was Dr. Banner, especially Tony and Osborn. They were familiar with Dr. Banner, who was also a genius. If it was him, maybe he could really help Norman Osborn solve the problem of the serum. Norman Osborn calmed down quickly after being excited. He looked at Kinlawo and asked, "Mr. Kin, I'm not questioning you, but is Dr. Banner really willing to help us? And we don't even know where he is now." "Don't worry, Banner will be back to New York soon. As for helping you, you don't have to worry about it. I'm sure he will agree," Kinlawo said confidently. Chapter 190 Let Go of Everything. Venom Invasion? After a little thought, the Green Goblin father and son decided to choose the second option decisively. The cooperation was initially reached. Kinlawo gave them a bunch of keys to the hero apartment. Knowing the significance of the hero apartment, the Green Goblin father and son were very surprised and excited, especially Norman Osborn. After experiencing the previous evil personality incident, he was very eager for an absolutely safe place to live, and Norman knew very well what a place like the hero apartment meant. Apart from anything else, Kinlawo lived in the apartment alone. The value of this apartment is priceless. It is definitely a trump card to save his life. Harry was looking forward to meeting those so-called superheroes. Boys, especially those from the United States, have a soul-to-soul admiration and yearning for superheroes. Kinlawo handed over the key and left with Spider-Man. The rest of the negotiation work had nothing to do with him. It was better to let professionals handle business matters. Later, I heard Tony mention it. The final result of the negotiation between Pepper and Norman Osborn was that Stark Industries held 60% of the shares, while Norman Osborn held 40%. Basically, it can be said that Osborn Industries has become a part of Stark Industries. Norman Osborn does not have to worry about anything, as long as he is responsible for researching new organisms and collecting money, basically the same as Tony. As for those original shareholders, Pepper fulfilled his promise and expelled them all from the company, which was considered to be a relief for Norman Osborn. For such a result, Norman Osborn did not have any dissatisfaction or unwillingness, and accepted it directly. Kinlawo also asked him curiously, why did he give up his power and the leading position of Osborn Industries so easily? Norman just smiled indifferently at Kinlawo's question. He said that after experiencing life and death, he became indifferent to many things. He didn't care about fame, wealth, or other messy things. Now he just wanted Harry and himself to be safe. If he could do some research, by the way, he would be even more satisfied. And Zhao and Kinlawo met all these conditions. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 284. As he spoke, the figure of the purple potato spirit appeared in his mind. To be honest, he was really impatient to fight Thanos now. Thinking back to when he first arrived in the Marvel world, he was frightened for a long time because of the purple potato spirit. Now he can definitely defeat Thanos without the blessing of the Infinity Stones. Even with the blessing of the Infinity Stones, Kinlawo was sure to suppress him and make it impossible for him to snap his fingers. Tony couldn't help rolling his eyes when he heard Kinlawo's words. He couldn't stand Kinlawo's pretentious behavior, especially in front of his woman, but there was nothing he could do. Pepper didn't say anything, but the idea came to her mind again, the idea of becoming stronger. She was really fed up with being protected. Just looking at Kinlawo in front of her, Pepper couldn't speak for a while. However, at this moment, the car stopped. Norman Osborn's villa was right in front of him. At this time, Norman Osborn and his son and Spider-Man were already standing at the door to greet them. The three got out of the car, and Norman Osborn immediately greeted them warmly. Although he still looks a little pale, it is much better than before. He also has fake teeth in his mouth, so there is nothing unusual. Spider-Man looked a little embarrassed and nervous at this moment, especially when he saw Kinlawo and Tony standing together. He didn't know how to face them. After all, he was very arrogant yesterday. Chapter 188. Other People's Children. Interview with Norman. Tony seemed to see Spider-Man's embarrassment at this moment. He walked up to him with a smile. Decisive and murderous Spider-Man, how was your rest yesterday, Mr. Stark? Hearing this, Spider-Man's face suddenly turned red and his neck became thick. He stammered and was so nervous that he couldn't even say a word. The thing he feared most happened. At this time, Pepper stepped forward to rescue him. She put her arm around Spider-Man's shoulders and rolled her eyes at Tony. You know Peter is helpless. Why are you still teasing him here? Go and quickly. Pepper Potts already knew about the matter of Venom, and Tony had basically nothing to hide from her. Tony had no way to deal with Pepper Potts, and after curling his lips to express his dissatisfaction, he walked straight into the villa. Norman Osborn, who was standing by, saw this scene, and a glint of light flashed in his eyes. Originally, the fact that Spider-Man was enough to surprise him, and he thought highly of Spider-Man. Now seeing the relationship between Spider-Man and Tony, he was surprised, and his evaluation of Spider-Man could not help but rise a few points again. He was too familiar with Pepper Potts. Although she was like this in front of Tony, she was the queen of the famous business empire in the outside world. Who dared to provoke her? Not to mention the current Osborn Industries, even the Osborn Industries in its heyday would be. He dared not to wrestle head-on with the queen. Originally, Norman Osborn was very proud of his son, and thought he was a child of destiny. But now, when he compared him with Spider-Man, he found that Spider-Man was the child of other people's families. Whether in academics or strength, he could beat his own son. Even in terms of background, he could not compare with Tony in terms of financial resources. And there was Kinlawo standing on his side in terms of force. Although he had some flaws in his character before, the fierce side of Spider-Man yesterday really made him remember it vividly. Norman Osborn couldn't help but sigh in his heart that he was still a failure. Harry was very sensitive to his father's eyes. He felt a little puzzled by his father's unfair look, but he didn't care too much. After all, his father had experienced so much. It is normal to be a little abnormal. When Spider-Man sent Norman back yesterday, he was really scared. He immediately contacted Norman's personal doctor to treat him. Fortunately, Norman Osborn has the blessing of the Green Goblin serum. The injuries on his body seemed serious, but after treatment, he quickly recovered. He also replaced the teeth in his mouth with new ones. Originally, Norman Osborn did not tell Harry about his evil personality and the things that happened before. After all, he wanted to maintain the image of a good father. But when the private doctor told Norman about Harry's recent physical examination changes, Norman was a little panicked. Because of the family's genetic disease, Harry was not spared. He also began to show the precursors of the genetic disease. So after the treatment that day, Norman told the matter. Among them, of course, It also includes the fact that Spider-Man is Spider-Man. Harry was stunned when he heard the news. Spider-Man was also confused. He never thought that Norman Osborn, the sixth brother, would actually stab him in the back. "You said you wouldn't tell Harry, but you confessed first?" Harry naturally didn't believe it, but when Spider-Man and Norman demonstrated their extraordinary powers to him, Harry had to believe it. It took him a long time to accept the fact that his brother was a superhero and his father was a supervillain. At the same time, he also knew about his own genetic disease and the Green Goblin potion. Everyone sat down. Norman looked at Kinlo impatiently and asked, "Mr. Kin, I am very grateful for your help yesterday, but I have an unwelcome request. Please agree to it." "About your son's genetic disease?" Kinlo smiled and said, "Yes. It's the problem of Harry's genetic disease. Although the Green Goblin serum can treat the disease in our family, the side effects are too great. I don't want Harry to have that kind of fear like me," Norman Osborn said, and suddenly the veins on his forehead bulged slightly, and his face turned pale. Whenever he thought of that evil personality, he couldn't help but feel a sharp pain in his head. Norman Osborn didn't know that this was a sequelae of soul loss. He just thought it was some kind of psychological problem. Kinlo shook his head slightly when he saw this, stretched out his hand, and the power of fluctuations emerged, turning into a ball of faint white light and merging into Norman Osborn's eyebrows. OMG, Harry couldn't help but let out a low cry. After all, such a scene is still a little too fantastic for an ordinary person like him. In an instant, Norman Osborn felt that the whole world became brighter. The severe pain disappeared without a trace, and even the feeling of trance disappeared completely. The comfort from the soul made him almost unable to help but scream out. "Comparable to a certain ball of mash?" "Huh, thank you." Norman Osborn breathed a sigh of relief and nodded to Kinlo gratefully. "You're welcome, and don't worry about Harry's genetic disease. One of the purposes of our coming today is this." Kinlo smiled and waved his hand. Then his face became serious and he said seriously, "Mr. Norman, the current Osborn Industries is just a facade. The people on the board of directors are almost tempting you out. If nothing unexpected happens, Osborn Industries will probably change its name soon. Am I right?" Hearing Kinlo's words, the faces of Norman and his son changed, especially Harry, who looked at his father in disbelief. He never expected such a thing. The successive changes made him doubt his life. Spider-Man also looked at Norman Osborn in surprise. Only Kinlo and the other two still looked normal. They already knew clearly about the internal affairs of Norman Osborn. How could it be? I think Norman Osborn subconsciously wanted to cover up the matter with his businessman's instinct. But when he saw the half-smile of Kinlo and the other two, he couldn't say the words on his lips. Chapter 285. In a mysterious underground laboratory somewhere on Earth, countless staff members in white coats are observing and recording a cube that emits a dreamy blue color. This blue cube is the Cosmic Cube, the treasure of Asgard. Later, it accidentally fell to Earth. It was first mastered by the Red Skull of Hydra, who used his power to develop the famous Rubik's Cube weapon. If it weren't for the captain's destruction, perhaps the current situation would have changed dramatically. The captain used the power of the Cosmic Cube to teleport the Red Skull to the depths of the universe, and then the plane lost control. At that time, the stubborn captain directly took the plane and the Rubik's Cube into the glacier, causing it to be frozen for 70 years, until the captain was discovered. The Cosmic Cube also saw the light of day. How could the boiled egg, who had seen the power of the Cosmic Cube, let go of this killer? Decisively gathered people, found a secret location, and began secret research. Speaking of which, the person who studied this Cosmic Cube has a little relationship with Thor. His name is Selvig, Thor's girlfriend on Earth and Jane Forte's mentor. Thor was able to be caught by S.H.I.E.L.D. without being killed. Selvig has made great efforts. After recording the data again, Selvig breathed a sigh of relief, and the crisis of his hairline was finally saved. According to the current progress, it is only a matter of time to complete the research on the Cosmic Cube. He can also go back to accompany his wife and children earlier. Ding-a-ling-a-ling. Suddenly, the phone rang. The number of people who can call here can be counted on one hand. So Selvig answered the phone without any hesitation. "Doctor, this is Hawkeye. Now that I have finished my work here, I can go back at any time." "Barton, It's great that you are back. I can feel relieved with you. By the way, your special arrow has been studied and the power is quite good, Selvig said with a smile. During the time he was studying the cosmic cube, Hawkeye was almost always by his side. So the relationship between the two was quite good. That's great. What about other research? Are there any new progress? Hawkeye's words were not finished when Nick Fury snatched the phone away. Hearing the voice of the black salted egg, the smile on Selvig's face became a little stiff. He said indifferently, "The research progress is very stable. It won't take long to complete it, but it's still a little difficult to make weapons now. Hawkeye's arrows have used up all the extracted power." On the other end of the phone, Nick Fury's ugly face finally eased a little after hearing this. "Please ask Dr. Selvig to speed up the research progress. We urgently need the power of the cosmic cube now." After speaking, Nick Fury hung up the phone directly. Selvig listened to the busy tone on the phone. His already unhappy expression became even more unhappy. "Report, the data of the cosmic cube just now is abnormal." However, at this moment, a young man in a white coat hurried over and spoke nervously. "OMG," Selvig exclaimed, and hurriedly ran towards the cosmic cube. Now this thing is more important than his life, and there can be no mistakes. Chapter 187 The Purpose of Sending Back to the Past. The Infinity Stone's old kin. If the captain really looks for you, can you really send him back to the past? In the luxury car, Tony looked at Kinlawo opposite and asked. Kinlawo smiled slightly, took a sip of the wine glass and said, "Send it back. Anyway, it's no big deal. It's a good thing." In fact, Kinlawo did not think of taking the captain into the hero apartment. However, he really didn't think much of the captain's strength. Even if he had the double blessing of hammer and shield in the later period, the strength is just so-so. Besides, with the captain's personality, the chance of standing with Kinlawo is very small. Even if he doesn't have a good impression of Shield now, he has a good impression of Kinlawo. The final result is still the same. There is no way. Who made him experience that era, before experiencing those things later? He is most loyal to the United States. The main reason why Kinlawo agreed to send Captain back to the past was to trick Nick Fury. Kinlawo knew the purpose of the black-boiled egg very well. Captain can be said to be a benchmark for his recruitment. You know, Falcon and Winter Soldier joined the Avengers because of Captain. Without Captain, it would not be so easy for Nick Fury to recruit soldiers. And Kinlawo had another idea about Winter Soldier. How do you plan to send him back? Tony looked at Kinlawo with interest and asked, "Do you still remember the Ancient One who faced Mephisto's will with me? That pretty white guy?" Hearing Kinlawo's words, Tony subconsciously wanted to say the words white bald head, but he changed it abruptly when the words came to his lips. After all, the Ancient One felt quite powerful at the time, and Tony didn't want to offend the other party because of his reckless words. Even if the other party is not here, Kinlawo, a pit character, will definitely tell the other party. "You were going to say boiled egg, weren't you?" Kinlawo raised his eyebrows, looked at Tony with a smirk and asked. "I'm not, I didn't, don't slander me." Tony quickly said 3 words of quality, decisively disassociating himself from the matter. Looking at Tony, who was almost confessing, Pepper on the side couldn't help but roll her eyes. "TSK, boring. Just say whatever you want. Master Ancient One is not a stingy person." Kinlawo raised an international universal gesture to Tony and said, "Master Ancient One has a magic weapon in his hand, called the Eye of Agamotto, which contains the Time Stone, one of the 6 infinite gems. The power of this gem can be used to travel through time." "Time Stone? Is it really that magical? But won't there be problems if I rashly modify time?" Tony is such a smart person that he immediately realized the key to traveling through time. There are definitely problems, but some problems are not unsolvable. He who went back to the past is already a person from another world from a certain perspective. Kinlawo shrugged his shoulders, and couldn't help but think of the scene in the original plot where the captain traveled back to the past and the old captain passed the shield to Falcon. Pepper didn't feel much about traveling back. In contrast, she was more interested in the 6 infinite gems, so she asked, "Kin, the time gem you mentioned is one of the 6 infinite gems, so what are the other gems?" "The 6 gems are space, time, reality, power, mind, and soul. Each gem contains powerful power and has unusual uses. In short, it is a good thing. After collecting all 6 gems, plus some props that can carry their power, you can fulfill a wish, any wish, but the premise is that the user can withstand the impact of the power of the gem when the wish is fulfilled. Pepper and Tony heard this. Surprise rose on their faces. If it were before, they would definitely think Kinlawo was telling them a fairy tale, but after going through so many things, they have realized the vastness of this world. Possessing such a magical thing is also within the acceptable range. Since the Infinity Stones are so powerful and can fulfill people's wishes, is there no one to collect them? Little Pepper asked again. It is impossible for ordinary people to collect them. After all, the power contained in the Infinity Stones is not bad, and the people who can possess them are not too weak. It can be said that it is difficult to plunder the stones from those people, but there is a powerful and idealistic madman who has been looking for the Infinity Stones, trying to use it to destroy half of the life in the universe. Little Pepper couldn't help but exclaimed when she heard Kinlawo say that someone was trying to destroy half of the life in the universe. OMG, even Tony's pupils shrank involuntarily. After all, this idea is a little too crazy for ordinary people. You don't have to worry too much. With me here, the madman's wish is doomed to fail. Do you think I will give him this opportunity? Kinlawo smiled and said confidently. Chapter 286. Hearing this, the captain's eyes lit up instantly. If someone else said this, the captain might not believe it, but he witnessed Peggy's return to her youthful state. It was hard for him not to believe Kinlawo's words, and these words can be said to have directly touched his heart. He couldn't imagine how wonderful it would be to grow old with Peggy. However, compared to the captain, Nick Fury was really angry and exploded on the spot. Unexpectedly, before leaving, Kinlawo didn't forget to backstab him. If the captain really went back to the past, what would he do? Kinlawo didn't care about the reaction of the people behind him. He hummed a song and walked out of the hospital slowly. The most romantic thing I can think of is to grow old with you slowly, until we are old and can't go anywhere. Deep in the universe, on a planet full of desolate places, countless aliens lined up here. There are hundreds of spaceships suspended in the sky. Among these aliens, an old alien walked out. The wrinkles on the alien's face were like the gullies of trees, but his temperament is very elegant. He seems to be an ancient noble. At this time, he seemed to sense something and looked towards the endless galaxy. Thousands of stars flashed in his eyes, and finally the image of the Earth appeared in his pupils. This alien is Ebony Maw, one of the 5 black generals and the capable general of Purple Potato Thanos. He is good at magic and can beat Doctor Strange with magic in the original plot. In the end, if it weren't for the plot killing, I'm afraid the Avengers would have a hard time even passing this level. Ebony Maw waved his hand. The surrounding aliens immediately dispersed. Then Loki came to Ebony Maw under the leadership of several aliens. The Wandering Prince of Asgard. Now I have sensed the location of the Cosmic Cube. Ebony Maw looked at Loki with a fake smile on his face. He deliberately emphasized the word wandering. The surrounding aliens laughed, and their eyes looking at Loki were full of playfulness and ridicule. For Loki, Ebony Maw was disdainful from the bottom of his heart. What, the first magician of the 9 realms, with that little bit of magic power, he is not even worthy of carrying his shoes. But his master Thanos values this impoverished Asgardian prince very much. So even if Ebony Maw disdains Loki, he can't show it too much. Loki looked at Ebony Maw, especially after seeing the other party's undisguised eyes, not to mention the frustration in his heart. He clenched his fists, and secretly swore in his heart that he would teach this guy a lesson in the future. But now he still had to force a flattering expression on his face. When he was picked up by Thanos, as the #1 wizard in the 9 realms, he must show his strength. As a result, he faced his colleague Ebony Maw. The gap in strength between the two was so big that the result was naturally no surprise. Loki was beaten so badly that he almost didn't even recognize his mother. Loki, tell me, can you complete the mission of Lord Thanos? I'll say it first. If there is any mistake from you, it will cause Lord Thanos' plan to fail. Even if I have to risk being punished by Lord Thanos, I will still banish your soul to the abyss of the universe. Ebony Maw looked at Loki with a threatening look. I promise to complete the mission. I will definitely help Lord Thanos to achieve his ideal. Loki ignored the ridicule around him and said solemnly, his eyes full of loyalty, Humphrey, you hope you can remember what you said. The power of the cosmic cube needs to be activated in a while. The Chitauri army is also gathering. You go back and prepare. Ebony Maw snorted coldly, then turned around and left the area, flying towards a spaceship in the sky. Farewell Lord Ebony Maw, Loki shouted, and the other Chitauri followed suit. In an instant, this sentence resounded throughout the planet. Ebony Maw, flying in the air, trembled all over, and the flying magic was almost interrupted. He felt even more disgusted with the shameless Loki. However, Loki didn't care at all. Now he only had hatred in his heart. He wanted to take revenge on Asgard and the human on Earth, but he couldn't do it with his own strength. Fortunately, he now has a big backer who is not inferior to his father. Loki firmly believes that as long as he holds on to Thanos' thigh, he will definitely be able to succeed in revenge. At that time, even his father can't stop him. Wait, human, Thor, and father, Loki, will be back soon. Loki clenched his fists, his eyes full of evil and madness. Chapter 186 Obstacles of the Earth. The cosmic cube entered the spaceship. Ebony Maw first took a bath and changed clothes, then he walked out of the spaceship and came to a very vast space through a special passage. There is a throne here, and the person sitting on the throne is the master of Ebony Maw, the purple potato spirit Thanos. Ebony Maw kneeled respectfully in front of Thanos. Lord Thanos, the plan has begun. I have sensed the location of the cosmic cube. In a few days, I can use the power of the space stone to open the space channel. Well, very good. Everything will go according to plan. Thanos looked at the endless sea of stars and spoke in a calm tone. Lord Thanos, please forgive me for being too nosy. Why must that third-rate wizard from Asgard be asked to complete this arduous task? Whether it is me or Black Dwarf, we can complete this task better than him. Of course, I am not questioning your decision, but I just can't figure it out. Ebony Maw lowered his head, his tone full of respect, fearing that Thanos would misunderstand his loyalty. Ebony Maw, although Loki is not very powerful, he is the prince of Asgard after all. No matter what he does, the old god king of Asgard will not interfere too much. But it's different for you. The old god king's time is running out. We don't need to conflict with him at this time. This is an unwise choice. Thanos' tone is still very calm, neither happy nor sad, which makes people puzzled. Ebony Maw's heart suddenly became much brighter after hearing this. He bowed deeply to Thanos and said, "Thank you, Lord Thanos, for clearing up my doubts. Then I will go to complete the teleportation array now and start the plan as soon as possible. Go. Don't forget to give the Mind Stone to Loki." Loki's actions this time are destined to be not smooth. The Reality Stone can help him clear obstacles better. Yes, Lord Thanos. Ebony Maw bowed deeply again and left the room backwards. Then he came to a magic circle that had been prepared long ago. According to the breath of the cosmic cube he felt, he began to draw the magic circle. Thin blue lines flew out from Ebony Maw's hands and fell on the magic circle. His movements were graceful and elegant, just like a pianist playing the piano. At the same time, Thanos slowly stood up, left the throne, walked to the window of the spaceship, and looked at the starry sky outside. His expression was inexplicably solemn. Although he could not predict the future like Odin and Ancient One, he could also feel some changes in his own destiny. Now he had a strong sense of hindrance. This was why he wanted to give the Mind Stone to Loki. Originally, he was still hesitating whether to give the gem to an unreliable person like Loki, but as the plan approached, the feeling of hindrance became stronger and stronger. He had to make up his mind to give the Mind Stone to Loki. Supreme Sorcerer Ancient One, will you be an obstacle to me, or is it someone else? It's incredible that a small earth can make me feel this way. However, no one can stop me from completing my plan, Madam Death. I wonder if you will be moved by my actions, Thanos murmured, looking at the starry sky outside the window, with a smile on his indifferent face. Chapter 287. Everyone outside the ward couldn't help but exclaimed when they saw this dreamlike scene. In comparison, Tony and Pepper were much calmer. They had long been accustomed to Kinluo's magic. Sharon looked at her younger aunt, and her face was full of complex colors. Since she was a child, she has been compared with Peggy because she looks like her. Sharon has always believed that she is more beautiful than Peggy. Even when she is young again, it is still the same. But now, seeing Peggy who has returned to her youth, no matter how much she doesn't want to admit it, she has to admit that her aunt was better than her when she was young. Even if the difference in appearance is not particularly large, with 70% similarity, there is a world of difference in temperament. Nick Fury clenched his fist secretly. The stronger and more powerful Kinluo performed, the more unwilling he was. In Nick Fury's view, Kinluo had already obtained the qualifications of an Avenger, but he had to stand on the opposite side of him. How could he accept this? Nick Fury was getting more and more upset, and was secretly wondering whether he should talk to Kinluo about the Avengers, although he knew that the other party was very likely to refuse. What if he agreed? It would be a huge profit. Kinluo looked at Peggy and was amazed by her appearance and temperament, but it was only for a moment. After all, he had a beautiful wife at home, and May Parker was better than Peggy in every aspect. There was also the power of the fruit. The two women were not comparable at all. Captain, there is only 1 hour left, so fulfill your agreement and don't leave any regrets for yourself. Kinluo patted the captain on the shoulder. Then he turned and walked out of the ward. Thank you. ×2. Peggy and the captain spoke almost at the same time. Kinluo did not look back, but waved his hand and pushed the door and left. Without the disturbance of outsiders, the ward completely became the world of the captain and Peggy. The music sounded, and a man and a woman danced in the ward. Both of them danced very seriously, but their eyes never left each other's eyes. Even though one of them was wearing a hospital gown and the other was wearing overalls and white short sleeves, without the gorgeous costumes for dancing. But in their eyes, this moment has surpassed everything. After Kinluo walked out of the ward, he found that Sharon had disappeared. I guess she was ashamed of herself. And Pepper and the people from S.H.I.E.L.D. looked at the two people dancing in the ward with a somewhat intoxicated look. Tony, however, looked bored. Many times, he really didn't understand such romance. In his opinion, the two people who had reunited after a long time and were both in peak condition should do something meaningful. Instead of performing the dance of the century here, Mr. Kinluo, seriously speaking, this should be the first time we meet. I want to talk to you alone. Nick Fury walked in front of Kinluo at this time and spoke in a serious tone. Kinluo saw the other person's look and immediately understood what he meant, so he waved his hand decisively and said, "Don't think too much. I have no interest in your shield. If you have that mind, look for other people." Faced with Kinluo's direct refusal, Nick Fury's face did not show any surprise. In his opinion, it would be strange if Kinluo agreed. I don't know why. Kinluo is very resistant to their shield, or rather, he dislikes it. This made Nick Fury feel a little depressed. However, he still had a thick skin, ignored Kinluo's refusal, took out a folder and handed it to Kinluo. "Mr. Kinluo, I don't know your power, let alone how much you know about this world, but you must know." Kinluo waved his hand and interrupted. "If it is the Avengers' plan, you can take it back now, and there is no need to waste your lips and words. Your Avengers' plan is okay for small fights, but you don't know what kind of existence is staring at the Earth. If it weren't for someone guarding it, the Earth would have fallen long ago, and it would not be your turn to shout slogans to defend the Earth here." Nick Fury's face became very ugly when he heard it. Kinluo's words almost pressed his face to the ground. However, Nick Fury had some doubts about the content of Kinluo's words. He had wandered in the universe before. He knew many secrets about the universe. This is why he wanted to form the Avengers. He took a deep breath and forced himself to suppress his dissatisfaction. Nick Fury looked at Kinluo and asked, "Mr. Kinluo, I don't know who the person you are talking about is, and can you answer my doubts? Why do you seem to know many things in advance? For example, the appearance of the captain and the agreement between the captain and Peggy. It stands to reason that outsiders cannot know about this matter. Even Howard's son Tony would not know about it." Kinluo smiled and shook his head when he heard it. "Nick Fury, I don't have to, and I have no obligation to satisfy your curiosity. In short, It's better for you and me to keep out of each other's way, and it's best not to appear in front of me. Even a clayman can still be angry, not to mention Nick Fury. After being confronted one after another, Nick Fury's eyes obviously became cold. He looked at Kinluo and said seriously, "Mr. Kinluo, self-confidence is a good thing, but arrogance can easily make people lose themselves. Do you think you are the most powerful person in the world? Haha, from a human perspective, I think there is nothing wrong with what you said. If you don't believe it, you can call Captain Marvel to try it with me. Let's see who is stronger and who is weaker. Your communicator should still work, right?" Kinluo sneered and looked at Nick Fury and said lightly. Nick Fury's heart tightened when he heard the words Captain Marvel, but there was nothing too unexpected. After all, Kinluo has always shown an ability similar to foresight, but the secret of the communicator was directly revealed by Kinluo, and Nick Fury was really a little panicked. His first thought was to kill and silence him, but after comparing the strength of both sides, Nick Fury decisively gave up this idea. Time passed quickly. Just a few minutes after Nick Fury and Kinluo talked, Peggy's time limit for returning to youth had expired, and she became gray-haired again, perhaps because she was too excited or too tired. Peggy, who had regained her old look, fell into a coma. Chapter 185 Backstab. Before leaving Loki's thigh. Seeing Peggy fall into a coma, the captain was a little panicked. He quickly put the elderly Peggy on the bed. After a careful examination, he made sure that the other party's breathing and heartbeats were normal. The captain was relieved, looking at Peggy's old face and the photos of Peggy and her family on the cabinet. The captain knew that he should leave. After all, Peggy was no longer his Peggy. In fact, the biggest regret in his heart was not the agreement with Peggy, but that he failed to grow old with Peggy. Take a deep breath and forcefully suppress the sadness in your heart. The captain stood up and walked out of the ward. Looking at the captain who pushed the door out, Nick Fury immediately came forward, patting the captain's shoulder heavily as if they were old friends. "Let's go. Come back with me. Your mission is not over, and the world is still not safe now." The captain looked at Nick Fury's big bald head, and felt an inexplicable awkwardness in his heart. Even though they were comrades in arms in the past, but 70 years have passed, and Nick Fury is no longer the young boy he used to be. There is no more purity in his eyes. In contrast, the Chinese boy is more pleasing to the eye. The captain gently pushed away Nick Fury's palm. He looked at Kinluo, bowed deeply, and said, "Thank you for helping me fulfill the agreement. If you need any help in the future, you can always find me." "Captain, you're welcome. I just want to witness the dance of the century. Now that things are over, we won't bother you anymore." Kinluo glanced at Nick Fury, who looked as gloomy as water, and the corners of his mouth couldn't help but rise a little. Tony and Pepper, whose eyes were red and swollen from crying, followed Kinluo and walked straight out of the hospital. However, just when he turned the corner of the corridor, Kinluo stopped, turned around and looked at the captain who was watching him and said, "If you want to make up for your regrets and grow old with Peggy, you can come to the hero apartment to find me. Maybe I can help you realize this wish." Chapter 288 Women are always more emotional than men. Strong women are no exception. Chapter 183 Meeting Old Lovers. Wonderful use of blood and energy. After the group arrived at the hospital, they went straight to a single bed. The captain's old lover Peggy was lying on the bed. She was covered with instruments. Her hair was white, her face was full of wrinkles, and her breathing was weak and pitiful. It was obvious that she was not going to live long. In fact, this was normal. After all, Peggy was over 90 years old. Normal people who could live to this age were long-lived. What's more, she survived from that era. However, from the traces of years, we can see the beauty of Peggy when she was young. Some beauty cannot be eroded by time. Looking at Peggy, who had become an old man from the window, the captain clenched his fists again, and even his nails pierced the skin, and the bright red blood slid from his fingers. His lips trembled, and he wanted to speak several times, but he never said a word. This is the real look of being so sad that he can't speak. Compared with Nick Fury's previous acting skills, the difference is obvious. After taking several deep breaths, the captain calmed down and wiped the blood off his palm. He pushed open the door of the ward and walked in. Since Nick Fury had already made arrangements, No one came to stop the captain. After entering the room, the captain sat directly next to Peggy. He looked at the photo of Peggy and his children, and his expression was indescribably complicated. Needless to say, the bitterness in his heart. Peggy seemed to have felt something at this time. She slowly opened her old eyes, looked at the captain beside her with turbid eyes, and gradually tears appeared in her eyes. Steve ... you are still alive ... I have been waiting for you ... I have finally been waiting for you ... long time no see. Cough cough cough. Perhaps because she was too excited, Peggy couldn't help but cough violently, and turbid tears slid from the corners of her eyes. After calming Carter down, the captain said with tears in his eyes and a forced smile, "How can I leave my beauty? She still owes me a dance." "Why did you take so long to come back?" "So long," Peggy murmured, tears constantly falling from the corners of her eyes. The captain grabbed Peggy's hand, and the tears in the corners of his eyes could no longer be suppressed. No one spoke in the corridor. Looking through the window at the elderly Peggy and the captain in the ward, the breathing became a little slower, for fear of disturbing this pair of long-lost lovers. After a long time, a young woman hurried over. She came straight to Nick Fury. This young woman knew Peggy 70% when she was young. Kinlawo recognized her at a glance. The person who came was Peggy's niece Sharon. Speaking of which, the captain is still quite playful. In the original plot, after Peggy's funeral, the captain kissed Sharon, and the relationship was slightly ambiguous. I don't know if it's considered messy. Nick Fury saw Sharon coming, pointed to the ward, and whispered something in her ear. His voice was indeed very soft. Among the people from S.H.I.E.L.D. present, almost no one could hear it clearly except Hawkeye and Black Widow. But Kinlawo's five senses were so sharp that almost every word of his words entered Kinlawo's ears. The general meaning was that Nick Fury asked Sharon to replace Peggy to complete the dance of the century with the captain. It has to be said that Nick Fury's arrangement was very thoughtful and there was nothing wrong with it. After all, at Peggy's age and condition, it was really a bit difficult for her to dance. "Okay, Lieutenant, don't waste your energy. I have a way to let Peggy accompany the captain to complete the last dance." Kinlawo said this. Sharon glared at Kinlawo and said unhappily, "Who are you? What right do you have to say that? If something happens to Aunt Peggy, can you be responsible?" Kinlawo glanced at Sharon. Although she looked good, her temperament was not as good as Peggy's. After all, Peggy came from that era, and some things were engraved in her bones. Just like those beauties, they cannot be worn away by time. "Do you think it's appropriate for her to complete this inappropriate dance of the century with the captain?" Kinlawo glanced at Nick Fury, and then walked straight into the ward. Now the status of the two is almost the same. It's time to complete the dance of the century. Sharon saw Kinlawo ignoring her and walking into the ward, and she was a little anxious. She wanted to stop him, but Nick Fury grabbed her arm. Don't think that Sharon seems to be very powerful in front of Kinlawo. As soon as Nick Fury made a move, she immediately lost her temper and could only look at Kinlawo's back angrily. There is no way. In front of ordinary people, Nick Fury is still quite impressive. The captain and Peggy held hands tightly, and the complex emotions in their eyes were simply too many to be frightened. Seeing Kinlawo coming in, the captain frowned. He didn't want anyone to disturb him now, but Kinlawo helped him after all, so the captain suppressed his dissatisfaction and said to Kinlawo, "Mr. Kin, can I and Peggy stay quietly for a while? We haven't seen each other for a long time." "Don't worry, I'm not here to disturb you. I'm just helping you fulfill the final agreement." Kinlawo smiled and waved his hand. Hearing this, both Peggy and the captain's eyes lit up. "What are you going to do?" The captain looked at Kinlawo nervously and asked. Now Kinlawo is a mysterious and powerful existence in his heart. Maybe he can really help himself. "It's very simple," Kinlawo said, and waved his hand directly, and the blood and chi were divided into pure vitality and poured into Peggy's body. From an outsider's point of view, it was just a red light entering Peggy's body. Peggy's body is now too damaged. To put it bluntly, she is just struggling to survive now. The blood and chi diversion is useless to help her recover her vitality. At best, it can only make her more energetic. However, Since awakening the Hellblood Demon God and awakening the blood memory, Kinlawo's mastery of blood and chi has derived many things. To put it bluntly, Kinlawo can use the blood and chi diversion of blood and chi to transform into special power, so that a person can return to the peak state of youth. However, the duration is limited. The stronger the person, the shorter the duration, and the more blood and chi are consumed. For someone like Peggy who is almost exhausted, even Kinlawo's blood and chi diversion can only restore her youth for an hour. Of course, this is also because Kinlawo did not increase the blood and chi, otherwise, it would not matter if it lasted a little longer. But Kinlawo really didn't want to waste his own blood and chi for an irrelevant person. It's enough to help Peggy complete the dance of the century. What else do you want? With the surge of blood and chi, Peggy's face and body recovered to their peak state at a speed visible to the naked eye. In a few seconds, a beautiful woman appeared on the bed. It was Peggy when she was young. Chapter 184 World Dance State, Raw Egg Fight OMG, Times and Chapter 289, Nick Fury only felt a pain in his heart. It felt like his meat was taken away by a wolf, and then the wolf was holding the meat and dangling it in front of him. The captain followed Kinlawo's gaze and couldn't help frowning when he saw Nick Fury. He felt that Nick Fury and that familiar person looked like a former comrade in arms of his, but he didn't dare to confirm the other party's identity. After all, 70 years have passed, and everything will be different. If his comrade in arms is really still alive, he doesn't look like a person of Nick Fury's age. It's more like saying that Nick Fury is his comrade in arms' son. Nick Fury looked at Kinlawo vigilantly. He is really a little panicked now. If the captain goes to the other party's camp again, then his Avengers plan will be a joke. Why did you lie to me? Who are you? The captain looked at Nick Fury and asked with a slightly cold tone. Soldier, I'm sorry, I don't want to lie to you. But there are some things that I hope you can have a process of acceptance. I hope you can understand. Nick Fury looked at the captain with a serious face and said. The captain frowned even more when he heard this. He was definitely upset, but there was nothing wrong with what the other party said. If he knew that he had been sleeping for 70 years when he just woke up, he would probably find it difficult to accept it. And from the other party's address, the captain was basically sure that the one-eyed bald man in front of him was his former teammate Nick Fury, although he didn't know why the other party didn't look like an old man. But he could sleep for 70 years without sleeping, so it didn't seem so unbearable for the other party to delay aging. Suddenly, the captain's face froze, and a beautiful figure appeared in his mind. The promise he made in the past came to his mind. After 70 years, he still owed his beloved woman a dance. Chapter 182 The Captain's Promise. Naked threat. Peggy. How is Peggy? Is she dead? The captain looked at Nick Fury and asked with some excitement. At the same time, he became extremely uneasy. He was really afraid that he would never see Peggy again. He was afraid that the woman he loved most would become a cold tombstone. Nick Fury's expression suddenly became a little gloomy. His thick lips pursed, and his voice trembled slightly. She is not dead, but she is running out of time. Now you can see her for the last time, and make up for your regrets. Friendly reminder, she is also waiting for your dance appointment. Before Nick Fury's emotions were brewing, Kinlawo spoke first. Nick Fury's face suddenly became ugly. Turning his head to look at Kinlawo, it seemed that 10,000 grass mud horses ran through his heart. At the same time, Nick Fury was a little confused. Why Kinlawo knew about Peggy. Not only that, he seemed to be very familiar with the captain's affairs. He even knew about the captain's dance appointment with Peggy. What was Nick Fury's mood? No one except the people of S.H.I.E.L.D. paid attention. After hearing Kinlawo's words, the captain was immersed in a complex mood of sadness and joy. The joy was naturally that Peggy was not dead, and the sadness was that he missed the date with his lover for 70 years. I'm going to see Peggy. The captain lowered his head and was silent for about half a minute. When he raised his head, his eyes were red and tears could be seen flickering in his eyes. Men don't cry easily, but they are not sad yet. Even Nick Fury couldn't help but feel a little moved when he saw the captain's eyes at this time. No problem. She is receiving treatment in the central hospital now, and I can take you to her now. Nick Fury nodded and said very happily, as if he was afraid that Kinlawo would interrupt him again. Nick Fury, if you don't mind, let's go too. Kinluo looked at Nick Fury with a smile and said, I'm sorry, Peggy and the captain are both confidential figures, I can't take you. Nick Fury refused Kinluo decisively without thinking. Just kidding. Just for a while, he felt that his captain was going to be taken away, unless his head collapsed. Otherwise, it would be absolutely impossible for the captain to have any contact with Kinluo again. Let him go with me. I have to thank him for telling me everything, not lies. The captain looked at Nick Fury and said. There was sarcasm in his words. Obviously, the captain still had a grudge against Nick Fury's deception. Nick Fury felt that his mentality was really about to explode. He looked at the captain and then at Kinluo, who was smiling smugly. Nick Fury still wanted to refuse. He didn't want to be controlled by Kinluo like this. ×2 However, just when he was about to speak, Hill and Coulson suddenly felt a sharp pain in their chests. They couldn't help but groan and half knelt on the ground. Seeing this, everyone in SHIELD hurriedly checked the status of the two, but they couldn't see anything. The pain from the heart became more and more intense. Even professional agents like Coulson and Hill couldn't help but break out in cold sweat on their foreheads, and their faces became as pale as paper. Oh my, it's a heart problem. Aren't we going to the hospital? Let's go now. Don't let anything happen. If you are sick, you have to treat it early, Kinluo said with a serious face. His expression was extremely serious and solemn, but he emphasized the word hospital. Ordinary SHIELD people didn't know what was going on, but Hawkeye, Black Widow, Nick Fury, and the parties involved, Coulson and Hill, how could they not know what happened to them? When Coulson and Hill saw Kinluo, they had already hidden behind everyone, for fear of being noticed by Kinluo. After all, what Kinluo said at that time made them frightened for a long time. They never expected that the scene they didn't want to see still happened, but it was a blessing in disguise. At least Kinluo didn't kill them directly. Nick Fury looked at Kinluo with a gloomy face. This was a naked threat, but he had no way at all. When Coulson and Hill reported this matter to him, he immediately asked someone to check their bodies, especially the heart, which was carefully checked. After several days of checking, nothing was found. Nick Fury didn't care too much after learning the result. He thought it was a threat from Kinluo, but he didn't expect that the other party actually did something to Coulson and Hill. The point is that they haven't found any clues yet. After taking a step back, Nick Fury almost gritted his teeth and said, "It's getting late. Let's go now. Captain, get in my car." As soon as the voice fell, Nick Fury got into a black car. The captain didn't refuse and followed Nick Fury into the black car. That is, the moment they got in the car, the intense pain in Coulson and Hill's heart disappeared without a trace. The pain disappeared so quickly that it even gave Hill and Coulson a dreamlike feeling. Everything just now seemed like an illusion. The two looked at each other, stood up and were about to leave. The situation is unclear now, but they don't want to die here inexplicably. Coulson and Hill really don't want to experience the pain just now again. Kinluo got into Tony's sports car, and leaned out to say to the two who were about to run away, "No matter where you are, I can trigger the power, so follow me to see it, the dance of the century. It would be a pity to miss it." After hearing Kinluo's words, Hill and Coulson froze for a moment, and after hesitating for a moment, they finally decided to get on the car to the hospital. Sitting in the car, both of them looked indescribably ugly. It was really uncomfortable to have your life in someone else's hands. "Kinluo, what's wrong with you all of a sudden? Aren't we going to Norman Osborn to discuss cooperation? Why are you going to see someone else's Twilight romance again?" After Happy started the car, Tony looked at Kinluo and asked in confusion, "A dance appointment that spans a century? This kind of scene is rare, and it would be a pity not to go and see it," Kinluo said, telling the story of the captain and his old lover, including the captain's past experience. Tony didn't feel much, but just felt quite shocked. However, Pepper was crying. Chapter 290, Don't panic, Captain. I'm not your enemy, and I'm not in the same group as the people who tricked you. Kinluo grabbed the captain's fist and shrugged his shoulders. "Why should I believe you?" The captain stared at Kinluo with sharp eyes, and at the same time, he secretly exerted force with his arms, trying to break his fist out of Kinluo's palm. But it was useless. No matter how hard he tried, the opponent's palm seemed to grow on his fist, and he couldn't shake it at all. Kinluo knew very well that in the captain's current state, it was really hard to trust anyone. But Kinluo was too lazy to talk nonsense with him, and began to exert force with his palm slightly. The severe pain from his fist made the captain couldn't help but groan. Looking at Kinluo's eyes, there was a look of fear. He never expected that the opponent's strength was so great that even he couldn't bear it. With strength, I am stronger than you and can easily deal with you. Do you think I still need to play those fancy conspiracies and tricks? Kinluo stopped exerting force with his fingers, looked at the captain with sharp eyes and said, feeling the other party's eyes. The captain was shocked. He couldn't help but compare his biggest rival, the Red Skull, with Kinluo. It turned out that the Red Skull was not comparable to the other party at all. At least the Red Skull would not give him this feeling of powerlessness. For a while, the captain actually believed Kinluo's words. Just as the other party said, with the gap in strength, why would the other party play any conspiracy and tricks? Calm down, I'll tell you briefly what's going on. Kinluo saw that the captain was almost done, so he let go of his palm and said. The captain didn't speak, but just rubbed his red and swollen purple fist silently, looking like he was listening attentively. This is New York now, for you. It is New York 70 years later. It has been 70 years since you flew the plane into the glacier. The world has changed dramatically. Kinluo finished speaking. The captain was completely silent, or more accurately, dazed. He stared blankly at the asphalt ground, even though he didn't believe this fact in his heart. But his intuition told him that what the man in front of him said was most likely true. There was no need for the other party to lie to him. By the way, I have a question for you. What would happen if you drove a plane loaded with bombs into the Arctic glacier and jumped directly? Even without a parachute or something like that, with your physical fitness, I'm afraid it wouldn't be a big deal, right? Kinluo looked at the captain and asked the doubts in his heart for many years. Chapter 181 Buff Fusion. Old acquaintance. The captain looked at Kinluo. His face was extremely stiff. His heart was more like being pierced by thousands of swords. Yes, why didn't I jump out of the plane at the beginning? With my own ability, the chance of survival must be very high. Even if I lose my arms and legs, it's better than sleeping for 70 years and everything has changed. The more the captain thought about it, the more depressed he felt. He clenched his fists tightly, and his eyes became painful. His eyes were full of regret and pain. Is he the legendary captain? Steve Rogers? Tony looked at the captain who was hurt, and then looked at Kinluo in front of him and asked curiously, "It's the real deal?" Kinluo shrugged his shoulders, and then he seemed to have thought of something. He looked at Tony with a smirk and said, "Tony, the captain and your father are comrades in arms. If you count according to seniority, it seems reasonable for you to call him uncle or grandpa." Tony couldn't help twitching his eyes when he heard it. He looked at the captain's young and handsome face, and he couldn't say the title of uncle or grandpa. Pepper covered her mouth and laughed secretly, and at the same time looked at the bitter captain, her eyes full of curiosity. The legend of the captain is definitely a familiar existence for their generation. Most boys regard the captain as an idol, just like Monkey King in Dragon Country. Although fewer girls regard him as an idol, they also know him quite well. Now the legendary person is standing in front of him alive. Pepper naturally feels a bit dreamy. The captain let out a long breath, and his expression gradually calmed down. Men who have experienced war are different, and they have strong self-adjustment ability and mentality. Obviously, the current captain has completely accepted the fact that it has been 70 years. At the beginning, I just wanted to stop the conspiracy of Hydra, so I didn't think too much. To be honest, I regret it now. At the end, the captain couldn't help but let out a self-deprecating smile. However, at this moment, Kinluo's ears rang with the system's prompt. Ding. Detected important plot characters. Steve Rogers, Captain America. Get powerful enhancement buff. When using a fishing rod to fish, there is a significant chance to increase the level of the item obtained. Kinluo was delighted. Finally, there is another powerful buff, but it seems to overlap with Johnny's buff. But it must be said that the big three are worthy of being the big three. The same buff, Johnny's increases a certain probability, while the captain's greatly increases the probability. Compared with the two, the difference is not a little bit. However, At this moment, the system's voice sounded again. Ding. Detected that the host already has the same type of buff. Whether to perform dual buff fusion. Yes. No. Kinlawo couldn't help but feel a little confused. He didn't expect that buff could actually have the function of fusion. Without much hesitation, Kinlawo decisively chose buff fusion. In a trance, Kinlawo seemed to see two light balls, one large and one small, merging. Finally, it turned into a golden light ball. Ding. Fusion successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the super amplification buff. Super amplification buff. When using a fishing rod to fish, the level of the obtained items will be increased by 100%. Hearing the system's prompt sound, Kinlawo's eyes shone with shining light. He is really eager to go fishing now. If he gets a golden fishing rod, he will really be rich this time. Colorful level rewards. The golden legendary level alone has already brought him to this level. It's hard to imagine what the colorful myth level rewards will look like. Do you know those who tried to deceive me? The captain looked at Kinlawo, who seemed to be in deep thought and couldn't help asking. Kinlawo came back to his senses after hearing this, and a mocking smile appeared on his face, saying, "Damn it, I know the hero. Not only I know him, but you are also quite familiar with him. He is someone I know?" When the captain said this, his face was full of disbelief. As for what hero Kinlawo mentioned, the captain completely ignored it. 70 years have passed, and it is normal that he does not understand many words. Of course, you know him, and you used to be comrades in arms. This is not. Kinlawo paused and turned to look at the black cars that were surrounding him and said, "He is here." The captain followed Kinlawo's gaze. After the black car stopped, Nick Fury got out of the car with Coulson, who was full of sorrow, and Hill and others. After seeing Kinlawo, the person he least wanted to see, and Tony and his wife. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 291. The captain said with a slightly sarcastic smile on his face. The female agent was dumbfounded when he said this. Everyone in the monitoring room looked at each other, and their hearts sank. No one thought that the football game broadcast they found in line with that era would actually run into someone's gun. It is impossible to hide the past now. Just as the female agent was thinking about how to deal with the current situation. "Tell me now, where is this place? Who are you? Which organization do you belong to?" the captain shouted. The female agent was so scared that she directly let go of the alarm in her hand. At this moment, two big men in black broke into the ward. Seeing this, the captain's muscles tensed up and the whole person entered a fighting state. Seeing that the atmosphere was getting more and more tense and a fight was about to break out, the female agent waved her hand and said, "No, Captain, don't be nervous. We have no ill intentions. Please calm down and listen to our explanation." How could the captain listen to the explanation of the female nurse in this situation? As fast as lightning, a straight punch hit the chest of the black-clad sturdy man, knocking him out directly. At the same time, a Thomas roundhouse kick kicked the other black-clad sturdy man out. In less than a second, two shield agents flew out, hit the wall, and directly knocked a big hole in the special room. Seeing the exit, the captain rushed out without hesitation. Several agents around wanted to intercept, but they were knocked out by the captain like a bull. The female agent was not targeted by the captain, but she was frightened by the scene in front of her. When he came to his senses, he could only see the captain's back rushing out. "No, Captain, please wait a moment," the female agent exclaimed. She wanted to call the captain, but in this situation, how could the captain listen to her? "Everyone pay attention." The captain rushed out of the room. The plan failed. "Everyone pay attention." After taking out the communicator and shouting anxiously twice, the female agent rushed out of the room and ran in the direction of the captain's departure. Chapter 180. Running for life and encountering Kinlawo in the monitoring room. Everyone rushed out, including Nick Fury. Nick Fury cursed in his heart at this time. The originally perfect plan had such a weird loophole. He has been really unlucky recently. At the same time, Coulson, who was preparing the radio, cursed in his heart. It was all because of this bastard. He said that it could deepen the reality, and he swore that it was perfect, the result. Now there is such a big mistake. During the time when he ran out of the monitoring room, Nick Fury had already thought about Coulson's overtime and cancellation of vacation for the next year. And Coulson, who was running in front, felt a chill on his back. He was bitter in his heart, and he could already foresee what kind of storm he would face next. The excitement of witnessing his idol disappeared at this moment, and Coulson was so depressed that he even wanted to die. After the captain rushed out of the special room, looking at the modern buildings around him and everything outside the window, he felt as if he had come to another world. At this time, several strong men in black rushed over and tried to stop him, but they were soon knocked down by the captain with 3 punches and 2 kicks. The captain didn't think about it anymore and was ready to rush out of the building full of enemies first. He ran desperately. The black-clad agents who came late could only see the captain's back. There was no chance to stop him, just after the captain ran out of the secret location of S.H.I.E.L.D. As a result, the high-rise buildings and traffic on the street made him feel unfamiliar. The world in front of him seemed to be no longer the world he was familiar with. The panic and various psychological pressures made him run desperately. After he ran a few hundred meters, more than a dozen black cars rushed out of the building and chased in the direction of the captain. The captain ran quickly across the street and came to a busy area. The pedestrians around looked at the barefoot man running wildly, and their faces showed surprise and confusion. The eyes that looked like a monster made the captain feel unspeakable discomfort in his heart. He stopped and kept looking around. At this time, the captain felt dizzy and the surrounding buildings seemed to be moving by themselves. This is a sign of mental stress and imminent collapse. Squeak! Suddenly a luxury car stopped beside the captain. A handsome Asian man, a man and a woman got out of the car. The Asian man looked up and down at the captain. It seemed that he was looking at something new. These 3 people were none other than Kin Luo and Tony. Yesterday, Kin Luo had made an appointment with Tony to go and talk with Norman Osborn after Norman Osborn woke up. Half an hour ago, they got the news from Spider-Man that Norman Osborn had woken up, so they set out to talk to Norman Osborn. Since it was a business issue, Tony specially brought Pepper with him. Unexpectedly, he saw the captain running barefoot halfway. Calculating the time, it seems that the captain should wake up, otherwise, he would miss the New York battle. It is a good opportunity to brush buff when meeting the captain by chance. Kin Luo will certainly not miss it. Oh my, what a coincidence. The captain just woke up. Kin Luo smiled and looked at the confused and flustered captain and said, "Are you in cahoots with those guys? Why did you design such a room to deceive me? What exactly is this place?" The captain calmed down and looked at Kin Luo nervously, his eyes full of vigilance. Kin Luo was stunned when he heard the words, but he reacted quickly. Puff! Kin Luo's shoulders shook and he couldn't help laughing. In the original plot, it seems that Nick Fury really messed up by being smart. What kind of ball game was played? But it turned out that people watched it live, and messed it up at that time. Kin Luo seemed to be able to imagine a scene when Nick Fury's dark face became stiff, the real version of shooting oneself in the foot. The captain, who was already on guard, saw Kin Luo smile like this. He thought the other party was laughing at him. Suddenly, the pressure in his heart turned into anger. The captain didn't care about anything and punched Kin Luo's handsome face directly. Bang! With a crisp sound, the captain's invincible fist did not work this time and was easily caught by Kin Luo. Chapter 292. His face turned red with excitement. He was almost smoking. There was no way. As the captain's most loyal fan, Coulson learned that the captain was about to wake up, and he could be one of the witnesses. How could he not be excited? Regarding Coulson's sudden intrusion, the people of S.H.I.E.L.D. did not pay much attention to it. They were still nervously staring at the sleeping captain. Nick Fury had his hands behind his back, and his eyes were shining. Hawkeye and Black Widow stood behind him on the left and right. They also looked at the sleeping man. Suddenly, the captain's brows frowned slightly. The eyeballs under his eyelids began to move rapidly. This was a sign of dreaming, and it didn't look like a good dream. However, at this moment, the instrument that was constantly monitoring the captain's body suddenly emitted a harsh buzzing sound. This was a signal that the captain was about to wake up. For a moment, Everyone's heart was lifted. Nick Fury was the same. There was no way. He really needed extraordinary power around him now, because of Kinlawo's appearance. His control over the extraordinary people was reduced by more than one level. Many extraordinary people who were originally recorded as having the possibility of being included in the Avengers have already stood by Kinlawo's side. If it were just that, it would be fine. With the ability of S.H.I.E.L.D., it is not impossible to win over those extraordinary people. But Kinlawo's strength is so strong that S.H.I.E.L.D. can't afford to provoke him at all. But Nick Fury is not a person who gives up easily. Now he is holding back a lot of energy in his heart and wants to defeat Kinlawo. And the Captain is one of his trump cards. Chapter 179 Captain Resurrection and Failure. Nick Fury sighed secretly in his heart. There is no way. Every time he thinks of Kinlawo's face, he can't help but get angry. However, the blisters on his feet are all caused by himself. If Nick Fury didn't want to pit Kinlawo, maybe the relationship between the two sides would not be so tense now. It's a pity that there is no regret medicine in the world. What's more, with Nick Fury's character, even if it happens again, how could he let go of the calculation Kinlawo? Besides, the establishment of the hero apartment is destined to make Kinlawo and Nick Fury not get along too harmoniously. Nick Fury once again cast his gaze on the Captain's frowning face. Suddenly, he remembered Howard Stark's figure. He thought about the three of them and Peggy when they were in the same team. They had experienced all kinds of things. Unfortunately, after 70 years, everything has changed. Howard Stark's son is standing on the opposite side of him. Whenever he thought of Tony, Nick Fury felt a headache, especially after learning that the other party had solved the problem of palladium. Nick Fury felt bad at that time. He cursed Howard, the shrewd guy, countless times in his heart. If that guy hadn't kept a trick, he could have used the new element to exchange for Tony's great favor. With Nick Fury's understanding of Tony, as long as he slightly manipulated it, there would be no need to worry about Tony joining the Avengers. Now, everything is gone. In addition, Tony's relationship with Kinlawo is getting closer and closer, and the negative impression of SHIELD. It's a miracle that Tony can join SHIELD. Even Nick Fury has no way now. We can only wait for the opportunity to come later. Suddenly, Nick Fury noticed that the Captain's eyes had opened a little. He immediately picked up the communicator. All personnel, get ready. The nurse is ready to enter the Captain's room. The Captain has awakened. Remember, he must not be able to detect any abnormality. Yes, boss. The female agent wearing the nurse uniform of the last century's battlefield hospital took her hand off the headset. Then she picked up the prop tray, sorted out her emotions and facial expressions. She opened the door and walked in. Outside the door, a group of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents were ready, their muscles tensed, ready to respond to any abnormalities at any time. In the room, the Captain slowly opened his eyes. The long-lost light made him a little uncomfortable. Everything around him seemed a little blurry. But with his strong physical fitness, he quickly adapted to everything. Suddenly, a familiar sound of a ball game came to his ears. The Captain looked at the familiar yet unfamiliar radio, and a gleam of brilliance flashed in his eyes. However, his facial expression did not change at all. He was still in a cold and sluggish state. The door of the ward was pushed open at this time. The female agent held the tray and looked at the Captain, who had woken up. She said in a slightly surprised tone, "Good afternoon, Captain. I didn't expect you to wake up so soon." Hearing this, the Captain turned back and looked at the female agent stiffly. A sharp light flashed in his eyes again. "Who are you? Where is this place?" The iron-blooded aura on his body instantly increased. The female agent's heart was involuntarily flustered. Fortunately, the female agent had a good psychological quality, and her acting skills were also professional. She immediately sorted out her emotions and replied, "You are now recuperating in a field hospital in New York, and I am your exclusive nurse." Hearing the female agent's answer, the Captain nodded slightly, and then fell silent, silently listening to the increasingly intense game broadcast. Seeing this, everyone in the S.H.I.E.L.D. in the monitoring room nodded one after another. They were secretly relieved in their hearts. As long as there is no problem with the female agent, it will not be a problem to appease the Captain. As for the truth, he can only be told slowly. About half a minute passed. The Captain slowly stood up, looked up at the nurse and said, "Where am I now? Who are you? Who asked you to lie to me?" Although the captain's tone was very calm, but his aura burst out completely, and his eyes became extremely sharp. The female agent's psychological defenses almost collapsed instantly, but she still gritted her teeth and said stubbornly, "Captain Steve, are you feeling uncomfortable? I really don't understand what you are doubting. This is just a hospital." After that, she looked at the captain with a little nervousness. At the same time, her finger pressed on the butt of the ballpoint pen. "Be ready to call someone in at any time. There is no way. A person's reputation is like a tree's shadow. The captain is definitely a benchmark figure for SHIELD. The female agent doesn't think she can deal with the other party. She is not the Black Widow. You know, this competition was in May of 1941, and I was watching it on the spot at that time." Chapter 293. But he didn't mean to deal with it directly. Spider-Man knew that Kinlawo would not harm him, but why did Kinlawo let it go? He couldn't help but think about it. He almost bumped into the billboard several times. At this moment, Norman Osborn behind Spider-Man seemed to wake up. After a tremor, he said in an extremely weak voice in Spider-Man's ear, "Peter, don't tell Harry everything, okay?" Spider-Man came back to his senses, looked at Norman Osborn, who looked weak behind him, and nodded heavily. He didn't want Harry to know that he was Spider-Man. "Thank you." Norman Osborn showed a relaxed smile on his face, closed his eyes again, and fainted. Although his injuries have been healed by Kinlawo, but the trauma on his soul is still a hard injury. It's not that Kinlawo has no way to heal him, it's just that now that he is cured, how can he negotiate conditions in the future? Facing an old fox like Norman Osborn, you must not feed him too much, you have to take it slowly. After Spider-Man left, Kinlawo said to Tony beside him, "What are you doing here? Why don't you go back and play with Pepper? You'll have a hard time tonight." Tony saw the gloating look on Kinlawo's face. He was so angry that his teeth were itching, but he still suppressed his anger and asked, "What happened to Spider-Man? What the hell is that black substance? Don't tell me you don't know." Kinlawo smiled and said, "There's nothing to say. It's just an alien parasite that can enhance the host's strength and affect the host's mind. It can amplify the host's negative emotions to the extreme. The parasite on Peter should be called Venom. I'm not sure." Tony suddenly showed a look of sudden enlightenment when he heard it. No wonder Spider-Man became like this. But is it just like this? Tony thought of Spider-Man's previous behavior. Although he could be described as having a bad temper and decisive killing, he couldn't be said to have amplified his own negative emotions to the extreme. Kinlawo saw Tony's look and instantly guessed his thoughts. Patting him on the shoulder, he said, "Don't think too much. The amplification of negative emotions is also limited. Think about what kind of person Peter is usually. It's already quite good to be able to become like this. Otherwise, the most vicious thing that kid can think of is just to throw dust in other people's eyes." Tony's mind flashed through a series of Spider-Man's actions, and he nodded in agreement. "So this is why you didn't take action to solve it?" Chapter 178. The captain about to awake. "Yeah, I don't think there's any need to care too much about this matter," Kinlawo said with a smile. Tony was speechless, but he still asked worriedly, "Kinlawo, you are a bit of a jerk. Spider-Man is still a child. You let an alien creature attach to him so recklessly. Aren't you afraid of any accidents?" "Why should I be afraid?" Kinlawo shrugged. "Power is not good or evil. The key is the person who uses the power. The reason why Spider-Man has changed now is nothing more than that he failed to master this power. Speaking of which, the ability of that alien creature is quite comprehensive. After possessing the host, it can improve the host's strength and recovery ability by a level. It's just that the weakness is quite fatal. It will temporarily lose its ability when encountering flames and ultrasound." Tony touched his chin and pondered Kinlawo's words. It made more and more sense. As he said, power is neither good nor bad. It mainly depends on the person who uses the power. "What do you think about me getting an alien creature like that?" Tony asked with a lot of interest. Kinlawo rolled his eyes at him. "Come on, stop it. Collect your thoughts and focus on the armor. Either Peter can handle it or you can handle it." Seeing Tony's unconvinced look, Kinlawo waved his hand and said again, "Don't be unconvinced. Do you have Peter's pure heart? Think about what your negative emotions will look like when they are magnified. Besides, The alien life that is now possessed by Peter can barely be regarded as a kind type, but his own kind are not so easy to talk to. The negative emotional impact may be greater. After hearing Kinluo's words, Tony suddenly had nothing to say. What he could think of was much more evil than Spider-Man's ash scattering. Okay, don't talk about these useless things. Since you don't want to go back now, let's talk about Norman Osborn. What do you think of Osborn Industries? Afternoon. After almost a day and a night of tossing and turning, Coulson felt that he was on the verge of sudden death. Back to SHIELD. Coulson collapsed on the sofa in the office without any image. Who will save me? Can't Kinluo. That bastard. Be honest for a few more days, Coulson complained while tapping his stiff legs. The battle between superheroes and supervillains took place in New York City, and it was on such a busy street. Even if S.H.I.E.L.D. is a professional ass-cleaning agency, it still takes a lot of effort. And Coulson is the person in charge of handling the aftermath this time. Ding-a-ling-a-ling, suddenly a phone rang. Coulson was frightened and shuddered all over. He picked up the phone with a bitter face. After seeing the number on it, the bitterness on his face became a little deeper. He now has a strong urge to retire. I am Coulson. What? Coulson hadn't finished speaking, but after hearing the voice on the other end of the phone, he instantly became energetic. Okay, I'll be there soon. Coulson put down the phone, without any more nonsense, rushed out of the office as if he had been injected with chicken blood, and ran towards the monitoring room on the top floor. In a secret room somewhere in S.H.I.E.L.D., the equipment and facilities in this room seem to be from the last century. The scenery outside the window is also a deliberately created illusion. On the bed in the middle of the room, there lies a man with a perfect figure. The man has a resolute face. Even with his eyes closed and his face pale, he still cannot hide the iron-blooded aura on his body. Obviously, this man has been through the battlefield, and he is also a veteran. Otherwise, it is absolutely impossible to have such an aura. As the man's breathing began to change, under remote control, a radio in the room began to play a game from decades ago. The man lying on the bed is the captain of one of the three giants of the Avengers in the Marvel world, Steve Rogers. The man with the title of 50-50. In order to avoid the destruction of New York, the former captain chose to take a plane loaded with bombs and sink directly into the Arctic glacier. At the same time, he also carried the space gem, one of the 6 infinite gems, that is, the cosmic cube. Later, the captain was discovered by the Arctic detection team. After reporting, S.H.I.E.L.D. immediately got the news. They took action directly to bring the captain back, with the blessing of the super soldier serum. Even though the captain had been frozen for 70 years, he still had vital signs. He just had been in a deep sleep and could not wake up. But today, the captain, who had been sleeping for a long time, suddenly responded and showed signs of waking up. As for everything in the room, it was naturally arranged by Nick Fury. It was to prevent any accidents from happening to the captain. There was no way anyone who knew that he had been sleeping for 70 years and was out of touch with an era would definitely experience huge psychological fluctuations. It was not impossible for his psychological weakness to collapse on the spot. Click. The door of the monitoring room was directly pushed open by Coulson. At this time, Coulson still looked as weak as before. Chapter 294. But soon Kinluo's facial expression returned to normal, and he even looked at Mephisto's will with a bit of blame and said, "I'll take the gift myself this time. Don't forget it next time. Remember to take care of yourself. When I visit Hell, rest assured that I will definitely bring a gift." Kinluo stretched out his ghost hand and punched the huge demon head directly in the center of his eyebrows. Damn human. In Mephisto's eyes that were almost ready to choose people to devour, the ghost mark on the ghost hand flashed a faint light. Soon the huge demon head began to twist, and was absorbed by the ghost mark. The advent of this will, it's nothing more than a way to use mental power, but the most basic is the power of the soul. So how could Kinluo let go of Mephisto's will? As early as when he appeared, Kinluo was ready to devour. It has to be said that Mephisto's will is really good. The soul power contained in it can be said to be quite rich. Devil May Cry and Azura have improved slightly. Kinluo clapped his hands, as if he was wiping away the dirt in his hands. Okay, the matter is settled. We can go back to our homes." Guyi didn't say anything more, nor did he say hello. The mystical magic in his hand surged, and he directly summoned a spark portal to leave the block. Tony didn't hear Kinlawo's words. Now he is still standing there, thinking about the problem of nano-armor that Kinlawo mentioned. At present, nanotechnology is not too mature. It can be said that it is very difficult to use nanotechnology to build armor, but difficult does not mean impossible. Tony is really tempted. If he can really build a nano-armor, coupled with this mysterious metal, his strength will definitely not be a little bit. Kinlawo glanced at Norman Osborn, who was still unconscious on the ground. Turning his head to look at Spider-Man, he said, "Peter, you will send Norman Osborn home later. You don't have to go back today. When he wakes up, let me know. I have something to talk to Norman Osborn about." Hearing Kinlawo's order, Spider-Man subconsciously wanted to nod, but suddenly an indescribable sense of humiliation rose in his heart. It was as if someone had sprinkled ashes in his eyes. At the same time, the nightmare of the mountains of books and the sea of questions he had kept emerging in his mind. Finally, the last string broke. "I refuse." "Kinlawo, from now on, you can't control everything about me anymore." Spider-Man pointed at Kinlawo and shouted in a way that was almost like a roar. This roar was quite loud. Even Tony, who was in deep thought, was awakened. He looked at Spider-Man with a surprised look. Suddenly he remembered that Spider-Man was not right today. "Kinlawo, Peter seems to be." "It's okay, I know." Tony was about to say something, but was interrupted by Kinlawo's wave. "Peter, I am very pleased that you can bravely speak your mind, but Brother Kin doesn't like your tone. I'll give you a chance to reorganize your words and say it again." Kinlawo came to Spider-Man with a smile, and he didn't show any anger at Spider-Man's attitude. Chapter 177 Venom retreats and sends Norman home. Kinlawo just stood in front of Spider-Man with a smile. There was no momentum or anything like that, but even so, the resentment that erupted in Spider-Man's heart also dissipated by half at this moment. The mask was retracted into the body. Spider-Man took a half step back slightly, and cold sweat could be seen sliding down his forehead. "Alas, isn't this courting death?" Tony looked at Spider-Man, sighed helplessly, and cast a look of self-pity. "Some things, not being angry is a very terrible thing." I. Spider-Man looked at Kinlawo's face with a smile on his face, and he couldn't say a complete sentence for a long time. The venom in his body also felt a strong sense of crisis at this time. It felt as if it was being stared at by a ferocious beast. Spider-Man's black battlesuit surged, as if it wanted to retract into his body. But he never dared to make any rash moves. He was afraid that he would expose something and then be torn to pieces by the beast. Without the interference of venom, the resentment in Spider-Man's heart quickly dissipated. His eyes gradually became clear. Gulp Spider swallowed his saliva and said with some trembling, "Brother Kin, I don't know what happened to me just now. I accept any punishment, but now I will just send Mr. Norman Osborn home, okay?" "It would be fine if you said so earlier. Remember, you can pretend with outsiders in the future, but pretend with me." Humphrey. Kinlawo didn't finish his words, but the last cold snort really made Spider feel like peeing. Spider didn't dare to talk nonsense anymore, and rushed to Norman Osborn in one step and carried him on his back. "Wait a minute." Just as Spider was about to leave, Kinlawo called him. "Anything else, Brother Kin?" Spider turned around and asked with a smile that was uglier than crying. "Nothing. Go back to Harry's house and be honest. Don't make trouble. Everything will be discussed after I go over," Kinlawo said, and patted Spider's shoulder heavily. A breath of air emanated from his body. The terrifying breath instantly scared the venom covering Spider's body back. Seeing that, Spider-Man revealed his original classic red and blue uniform. Tony's face showed a look of surprise, and he began to wonder what the black substance was that caused Spider-Man's personality to change so much. Venom Turtle shrank into his body. Spider-Man's eyes completely regained clarity. This is what Kinlawo wanted. Otherwise, with the blackened Spider-Man's personality, it is easy to do some radical behavior if he disagrees with someone. If Harry is hurt by this, I am afraid that Spider-Man will regret it when he regains his consciousness. At the same time, the venom in Spider-Man's body has begun to think about whether he should give up this host. Although this host meets his requirements very well and contains powerful power, but the person next to him is so terrifying. In front of this person, he doesn't even have the courage to fight. After thinking about it, Venom finally decided to wait and see, because he had a new idea. Even tigers take naps. By then, everything is possible. Then he will be invincible. Spider-Man left the street. When he left, his body was shaking, and his eyes were full of fear and terror. Of course, these emotions were not purely caused by Kinluo. More of Spider-Man was still afraid of his actions just now. He just wanted to kill his good friend's father, and in such a cruel way. If Kinluo hadn't appeared in time, Spider-Man really couldn't imagine how he would face Harry. As for what happened to him, Spider-Man immediately thought of the black substance. He was very worried about his changes and wanted to ask Kinluo to help him solve his problems. But Spider-Man was not a fool. He could see that Kinluo already knew what happened to him. Chapter 295. So he would never allow an existence like Dormammu's dark dimension to invade the Earth. And Odin knew that with Dormammu's character, after devouring the Earth, he would definitely set his sights on the other 9 realms. What's more, there is another existence on the Earth that he taboos. If Mephisto and Dormammu join forces to invade the Earth, the final result is nothing more than the 2 old monsters, Ancient One and Odin, joining forces. No matter which of these 2 people, Dormammu and Mephisto will not be too easy to deal with, let alone join forces. Their winning rate will not exceed 10%. Add to that the factor of Kinluo, and the winning rate will be directly reduced to 0. This is why Kinluo wanted to laugh at this time. Mephisto's words are really a bit nonsense. Dormammu will not join forces with you. He is not a fool. Mephisto should stop talking about these unrealistic dreams, Ancient One said slowly. The plain words were like a sharp arrow that pierced directly into Mephisto's heart. Puff Kinluo couldn't help it at this time and laughed out loud. Instantly, the eyes of Ancient One and Mephisto were all focused on him. It was like Mephisto's eyes that wanted to choose someone to devour, which was absolutely terrifying. Kinluo didn't feel anything. He had been looked at like this by Mephisto more than once or twice, but Tony behind him couldn't bear it. The moment Mephisto's eyes were cast over, Tony felt that his heart was about to stop. There was no way. Who made Tony an ordinary person? His mental strength was already far beyond that of normal people. Otherwise, a look from Mephisto would probably kill Tony. Kinluo waved in the direction of Ancient One and Mephisto. Well, I suddenly remembered some happy things. You guys continue to talk. Don't worry about me. Ancient One turned around indifferently, but Mephisto in hell felt that he was about to explode. At the same time, he also regretted bringing up Dormammu. Mephisto was not unaware of the interests involved. Just now, he was just blinded by anger. Now even he himself was stupid. Kinluo came to Tony and patted him on the shoulder. The power of fluctuation suddenly emerged, protecting Tony, who was almost suffocating. Haha, Tony panted, his forehead full of cold sweat. Damn, this is the power of the Lord of Hell. Just a look makes me feel like I'm going to die. It's so scary. When he said these words, Tony's face was obviously a bit frustrated. He suddenly felt that the steel armor he was proud of was like a toy in front of those real strong men, and it was not vulnerable at all. Oh, don't care about these details. Your steel armor is powerful, but you are just an ordinary person. It is normal that you can't resist such a mental shock. Kinluo smiled and comforted. At the same time, he took out a palm-sized piece of metal and handed it to Tony, saying, when the time comes, integrate this metal into your steel armor. You can resist most of the mental shocks. Tony looked at the heavy metal in his hand, and had an inexplicable feeling in his heart. He didn't want to accept Kinluo's gift. After all, in his heart, he has already regarded Kinluo as a target. His biggest wish now is to surpass Kinluo in strength. But today's experience made him unable to refuse this special metal. Tony really didn't want to be stopped by a glance. This special metal is very precious. I won't take it for nothing. You give me a price. After thinking for a while, Tony gritted his teeth and put the metal into the steel armor. Kinluo shrugged his shoulders, took out a half-man-high huge metal wine gourd, took a sip of the divine wine and said, it's okay, money or something, if you like it, just give me some scraps. It doesn't matter. Looking at such a big wine gourd, Tony's eyes almost popped out. Looking down at the metal that had been put into the armor, the corners of his mouth twitched wildly. Kinlawo really didn't lie. This is really a scrap. But why did you take it out? And took out such a big wine gourd? It's clearly showing off. In an instant, that strong sense of insult, this made Tony want to use an arc pulse cannon on Kinlawo's smirking face. At the same time, the frustration in his heart increased a bit. Tony suddenly felt that apart from money, he was basically a poor man. Tony, have you ever thought about studying nanotechnology? I think nano armor is very suitable for you. Chapter 176 Devouring Will. Blackening Courage. Tony and Kinlawo were discussing the nano armor. The atmosphere on the side of Guyi and Mephisto became more and more tense. For countless years, Mephisto has never had such a big killing intention. He really wants to drag Guyi and Kinlawo into hell at all costs. Supreme Sorcerer, don't force me. You know very well what kind of existence is behind me. Even in front of her, you are just an ant. Mephisto looked at Guyi in front of him, and his expression suddenly became respectful. Of course, this respect is not for Guyi, but for the she in his words, that is, the real ruler of hell and death, the goddess of death. It can also be called Lady Death. Just as you said, I am just an ant in her eyes, but aren't you an ant too? Do you think she will care about the fight between ants? Unless you destroy hell, maybe she will show up. But by then, I'm afraid you will die before me. Ancient One's words were like directly peeling off the flesh and revealing the bloody reality. Mephisto's teeth were almost broken, but he had to admit that what Ancient One said was true. If the big guy was really lured out, he would definitely be the first to die. Not Ancient One and the others. Supreme Sorcerer, do you think you really see through everything? You think she is too simple? Mephisto said stubbornly. It's better to lose the battle than the battle. Even if he knew the result, he had said it. Mephisto couldn't admit it. However, Guyi did not give him any face at all, and raised his hand directly, making a gesture of invitation. In that case, why don't you invite her out? Or do you dare not? You. Wait, the wrath of hell will eventually descend on the earth, and then both you and Kinlawo will be reduced to ashes. Mephisto was afraid that he would be angry to death, so he was ready to withdraw his will after saying some harsh words. Faced with this behavior, Guyi's eyes clearly showed disdain. She suddenly felt that it was a shame to stand on the same level as Mephisto. Mephisto didn't look at Guyi at all. However, just when he wanted to withdraw his will, suddenly, he felt that the surrounding space was blocked. His will could not return to hell at all. Guyi, what do you mean by this? Facing Mephisto's questioning, Guyi was also a little stunned, and then turned to look at Kinlawo, with a look of crying and laughing on his face. She seemed to have anticipated what Kinlawo was going to do, so she didn't say anything, but jumped back and distanced herself from Mephisto. Seeing Ancient One's strange behavior, Mephisto's mind was still a little confused, but when Kinlawo walked in front of him, Mephisto finally understood. It was not Ancient One who restricted him, but the damn human in front of him. Suddenly Mephisto seemed to have thought of something. His face became extremely ugly, and the red demon had almost turned green. Look at you, you don't even know what gifts to bring when you come to the human world. How disrespectful to me and Master Ancient One. Kinlawo grinned, revealing his white teeth. Don't take me with you, your behavior has nothing to do with me. Ancient One, who was pulling away, suddenly spoke. At this moment, she felt that the identities of the two people in front of her seemed to be somewhat swapped. Compared with Mephisto, Kinlawo was more like a demon in many cases. Kinlawo heard what Ancient One said, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. He really didn't give face. Chapter 296. If it were someone else, even if they could defeat the green demon, they would still have to spend some time to kill him. After all, the indestructible attribute of the soul power is still quite troublesome if the power of hell is not consumed. Others can only constantly destroy the flame green demon and consume his hell power before they can really kill the flame green demon. But Kinlawo is different. With the power of ghosts and gods in hand, it is easy to deal with this kind of immortal monster, especially since the flame green demon was transformed from the green demon. It is simply too much to his taste. The mark of the ghost rune on Kinluo's arm lit up. The most shining one among them was the erosion Pullman. Pullman seemed to be very interested in the soul of the green demon. Kinluo saw this and followed his wishes, directly suppressing the rest of the ghosts and gods, leaving only Pullman to devour the green demon. The same green light flashed. The shadow of Pullman with the horns of the ram on his head suddenly jumped out, and pulled the flame green demon into his body with both hands. At this moment, Pullman seemed to have turned into a microwave oven. The flame green demon began to melt in his body at a speed visible to the naked eye. Ah, no, I don't want to die. Let me go. The green demon felt his body that had not regenerated, and was completely panicked. He screamed madly and tried to rush out of Pullman's body, but it was useless. He could only watch his body melt. Then it was absorbed by Pullman. It took about 10 seconds. The flame green demon was digested by Pullman. Pullman's body also became a little more solid. Kinluo couldn't help but nod secretly when he saw this. It seems that letting ghosts and gods devour powers with similar attributes will improve them greatly. I dare not say more, just this one flame green demon. The effect after Pullman devoured it is comparable to the 50,000 sinful undead in the Death Town. I don't know when Kinluo faced these ghosts and gods, he felt like playing a feeding game. Pullman licked his lips and looked around with pale eyes. The flame green demon just now made him appetite, and he wanted to eat something. Kinluo knew very well what kind of people these ghosts and gods were. Want to feed them? Even if they were fed the entire Marvel world, it might not be enough. So Kinluo simply took back Pullman forcefully and ignored its dissatisfaction. Although it's not the first time I've seen it, every time I see these terrible beings, I feel great pressure. It's hard to imagine how you control them. Those mysterious symbols? Guyi walked to Kinluo's side, looked at the scarlet and ferocious ghost hand, and said with a little emotion and surprise, "Well." Kinluo hesitated. He didn't want to reveal the secret of the ghost hand to Guyi. Just when he was thinking about how to change the subject, the surroundings were suddenly shrouded by the power of hell. Kinluo and Guyi both felt the arrival of will. As for whose will it was, there was no need to say more. Of course, it was Mephisto, the Lord of Hell. At this time, Mephisto was full of anger. He finally found a good evil soul. He had just given him the power of hell, but it had only been a short time. He was destroyed by others. The power of hell disappeared completely. He didn't even have a chance to recover it. Who destroyed my slaves? The voice with terrifying power resounded throughout the street. Then a demon head appeared where the flame green demon disappeared. Long time no see, Mephisto. How are you doing recently? Have you eaten well and slept well? Kinluo looked at the huge demon head and said with a concerned look on his face. Kinluo's concern was sincere. After all, Mephisto was related to the improvement of his Berserker and Devil May Cry series. If there was any problem with it, Kinluo would be very sad. Hearing that familiar and annoying voice, Mephisto immediately fully surrendered his will, and at this time, the demon head opened its scarlet eyes. After seeing the two people in front of him, Mephisto's horizontal pupils suddenly shrank, almost turning into a line. Kinluo, Ancient One, it's you again. Mephisto stared at Ancient One and Kinluo, his teeth almost broken. At the same time, his heart was also weak. The thing he least wanted to see happened. Kinluo and Ancient One were mixed up. It was not a good thing for him. Mephisto, you broke the agreement again and again. What do you mean? Ancient One looked at Mephisto and questioned. He did not leave him, the Lord of Hell, any face at all. Originally, Mephisto had no face in front of Ancient One. Tony and Spider-Man looked at the scene in front of them. They swallowed their saliva involuntarily. The two of them almost simultaneously aroused their desire for power. The soul pressure brought by Mephisto's will was still a little unbearable for them. Now they were not even going to act, even if they wanted to talk. It was a rather luxurious thing. Bullshit agreement, bullshit rules. Ancient One, don't think about restricting me from coming to the human world again in the future. At worst, we will die together. Don't force me to join forces with Dormammu to share the earth together. Mephisto stared at Ancient One and roared angrily. Chapter 175. Heartbroken, Tony asked with nothing. Odin returned to the throne. Looking in the direction of the earth, His one eye was almost narrowed into a slit, and the eternal spear in his hand emitted a faint light. He exuded a terrifying aura. He was like a lion that had just woken up. It was daunting. Facing the exasperated Mephisto, Ancient One was very calm. Even when the other party mentioned Dormammu, she did not have any emotional fluctuations. It was as if the opposite side was a ball of air. However, Kinlawo inexplicably felt a sense of joy. Mephisto threatened Ancient One with Dormammu, and he really wanted to go blind. Ancient One fought with Dormammu so many times, and when did he lose? At most, a few useless disciples were bewitched. Didn't you see Ancient One so unscrupulously absorbing the power of the Dark Dimension? Didn't Dormammu come forward to stop it or something? Do you really think Dormammu doesn't know what Ancient One is doing? Of course it's impossible. As the master of the Dark Dimension, Dormammu has almost merged with the Dark Dimension. Ancient One's absorption of the power of the Dark Dimension is basically equivalent to sucking his blood. But what can we do? If Dormammu could do nothing to Ancient One, the Earth would have changed hands long ago. Why did Dormammu wait until Ancient One died before he dared to come out and act recklessly, bullying a new Supreme Sorcerer? He was also forced to fight a 50-50 match by the opponent using the Time Stone. Now even if Mephisto and Dormammu join forces, Earth is not a piece of land that they can do whatever they want. Mephisto's hell, after all, is still related to the Earth, and can be regarded as a person eating at the table. Whatever impact he has on the Earth, Odin may turn a blind eye. What's more, there is a heaven to check and balance it. No matter how excessive the power of hell is, it is not too excessive. But Mephisto and Dormammu are about to overturn the table. Odin, the old Yinbi God King, is old, but not dead. Chapter 297. Mephisto, who was extremely angry, slapped the space crack away with a slap. Now Mephisto didn't care about any rules or regulations. He just wanted to kill Kinlawo, so he started to think about breaking the space blockade of Guyi again. However, in order to avoid the trouble of Guyi, Mephisto chose to act silently. This also led to Mephisto's inability to fully feel the situation in the human world during this process. However, due to his sensitivity to the soul, Mephisto felt the unwillingness of the Green Goblin when he broke through the blockade. So, his will came. The legendary Satan? I didn't expect that an existence like me could summon such a big man. Mephisto, I promise you, no matter what you ask, I can't agree to it, even my soul, but you have to give me strength to help me revenge. The soul of the Green Goblin kept roaring. The hatred in his heart almost reached a peak. As long as he can kill all the people in front of him, even if his soul falls into hell forever, it doesn't matter. However, what the Green Goblin didn't know was that his determination was just a joke. Mephisto, whom he relied on, suffered a lot in the hands of the two people in front of him. Not bad, really not bad. This kind of soul is what I want. Then the contract is made. Mephisto laughed with satisfaction. What he likes most is a soul like the Green Goblin who is both obsessed and evil. Soon, a soul contract representing Mephisto appeared in the depths of the Green Goblin's soul. After placing his soul breath on the contract, suddenly, the Green Goblin was shocked, and green flames began to burn on his soul. Unlike the hellfire full of destructive power, the Green Goblin's flames are full of corruption and vicious breath. It's like some kind of highly corrosive poison. If it's a normal person, I'm afraid he wouldn't want to get involved in it. The Green Goblin laughed wildly, feeling the unprecedented power in his body. At this moment, he felt as if the whole world belonged to him. Gradually, the Green Goblin's body began to solidify, and when he stepped on the ground barefoot, bursts of black smoke suddenly came out. Fuck, what's going on? What happened? Has it mutated? Looking at the Green Goblin who turned into a green fireman, Tony was shocked, and even the Dragon Country's national essence was called out in fear. Especially after Jarvis detected the power contained in the other party, Tony involuntarily took a half step back, fearing that he would be contaminated. The state of the blackened little spider was not any better than Tony. He was originally shocked by Kinlawo's appearance. Now seeing such a flame, the venom covering his body squirmed, and there was a faint sense of fading. It is well known that venom is most afraid of flames and high-frequency sounds. What a panic! It's just a little pitiful hell power. Mephisto is really getting more and more stingy. Kinluo curled his lips in disdain, and his eyes were full of contempt when he looked at the flame green demon. Guyi's face was normal, and he didn't say much, but this is enough to explain everything. As the power of the green flame weakened slightly, the flame green demon opened his green vertical pupils. He stared at Kinluo and the other four. That fierce look seemed to want to swallow them alive. Tony was a little scared by this kind of stare. He didn't hesitate and fired a palm cannon. Anyway, Kinluo was by his side, so even if something went wrong, he would not be afraid of no one to cover it. Bang! The palm cannon fell on the body of the flame green goblin, directly blowing up half of his head, and splashing out a green spark. Tony didn't feel any joy or contempt when he saw this, but frowned, because the flame green goblin didn't look like he should have been shot in the head at this time. Instead, he showed an extremely mocking smile. The next second, the green sparks that flew out began to shrink rapidly, and soon the flame green goblin's head was restored to its original state. This kind of self-healing ability and speed are 3 times stronger than Gian. It is comparable to immortality. Of course, these are just what ordinary people see. Kinluo can clearly feel that as the green goblin reshapes his body, the hell power contained in his green flame has weakened a little. Although it is only a little bit, it really exists. That is to say, as long as the number of deaths reaches a certain level, the green goblin will no longer have the ability to resurrect. What a wonderful power of hell, you humble humans. Are you ready to accept the burning of my corrosive fire? The flame green goblin looked at the blazing green flame in his hand, his face full of intoxication. Kinluo couldn't help but twitch his mouth when he heard it. He really didn't want to watch the flame green goblin's performance like this. Stop talking nonsense. Let Mephisto come out and talk to us. Kinluo waved his hand and said impatiently, "Asshole, you actually insulted Lord Mephisto." The green goblin roared, as if someone had insulted his own father. He raised his hand and grabbed a pumpkin bomb, and then the green flames enveloped the pumpkin bomb. Like the Ghost Rider, the pumpkin bomb was enchanted by the corrosive fire. Soon, earth-shaking changes occurred. A standard demon pumpkin head appeared in the hands of the flame green goblin, with blazing green fire burning on it. "Go to hell," the green goblin roared, and the pumpkin head seemed to come alive in an instant, opening its mouth wide and rushing towards Kinluo. Tony hurriedly stepped back a few steps. He searched his body and confirmed that he had come out too hastily and did not bring any snacks. The face under the mask was suddenly filled with disappointment. A good show without snacks would be imperfect. Chapter 174 Feeding Ghosts and Gods will descend. Kinluo glanced at Guyi beside him. After confirming that the other party had no intention of attacking, he shook his head helplessly. After all, the visitor is a guest, so let him do it. Just treat it as a snack for the ghosts and gods. Kinluo took a step forward, made a sword finger, and pointed in the air, and countless sword beams flashed. The demonized pumpkin bomb was directly cut into pieces. There was no chance of explosion. "Damn guy, I wonder how many you can block," the flame green goblin roared, and 6 pumpkin bombs flew out from behind, transformed into the same pumpkin-headed demon, forming a huge green fire wheel. However, Kinluo was too lazy to waste time with the green goblin. His figure flashed, and he instantly appeared in front of the green demon. The white arm turned into a scarlet ghost hand. The green demon was shocked when he saw this, but his blind confidence made him think that Kinluo could not do anything to him, so he had no intention of running away at all, but instead controlled the fire wheel composed of pumpkin-headed demons to smash towards Kinluo. Kinluo also did not dodge, stretched out his hand and directly grabbed the green demon's head. Those dark green corrosive fires continued to burn Kinluo's ghost hand, but in the end, it could not hurt it at all. The fire wheel also turned into ashes under Kinluo's protective sword energy and dissipated in the air. Seeing that the power he relied on could not do anything to Kinluo, the green demon suddenly panicked. But now it was too late to escape. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 298. However, at this moment, Kinluo appeared behind the Green Goblin. Chapter 172. Soul Division. Just one slap. Kinluo's appearance surprised Spider-Man. He took a step back involuntarily, and became much more sober. Tony didn't show any surprise, but his eyes were almost rolling under the mask. He cursed in his heart. Scam. I knew this scumbag was watching the show. And it turned out to be true. He will die if he doesn't take action until the end, right? Kinluo shook his head helplessly and smiled. You are really too much. And you put a bomb in someone's mouth. Do you think you are playing ball? Beep beep. However, at this moment, a piercing alarm sounded. Even if Tony was unhappy, he couldn't help but warn him. Hey, Scam, it's going to explode. Be careful of that bomb. It's very powerful. Kinluo smiled at Tony, showing his white teeth. Then he slapped the back of the Green Goblin's head. The super pumpkin bomb was directly blown away. Tony and Spider-Man were even confused by the Green Goblin, and their eyes were fixed on the pumpkin bomb, whose alarm was getting more and more piercing. Suddenly, a spark portal appeared on the ground. The moment the bomb was about to explode, it disappeared into the portal, and it was unknown where it was teleported to. Tony rushed to the place where the super pumpkin bomb disappeared. After carefully touching the ground and confirming that the super pumpkin bomb disappeared silently, his eyes widened. Walter, what kind of power is this? Is this a new trick you have researched? What is the principle? Tony looked at Kinluo and asked, with a bit of eagerness and curiosity in his tone. The power of magic. Kinluo shrugged his shoulders and then looked up at the sky. Master Ancient One. This guy, take a look at him. Can he expel the evil personality? Hey, can you be more normal every day? Who are you talking to? Walter. Tony said dissatisfiedly, but halfway through his words, he saw Ancient One suddenly appear beside Kinluo, looking at the Green Goblin, who was already in a semi-dizzy state. His soul was indeed split by something. Half of it is normal, and the other half is full of evil and darkness. It's really a strange soul, Master Guyi said with a little surprise. She has seen similar situations over the years. Many schizophrenia diseases will produce similar effects, but it is quite rare to split so cleanly and independently. Even Guyi, who has lived for 1,000 years, has not seen such a situation many times. Split soul? Damn, why does Kinluo, this pit, always have such unscientific things around him? Tony complained, looking at the green demon with blood on his face, his eyes full of curiosity. Now Tony has completely turned into a curious baby mode. Since watching the ghosts and gods devour those sinful dead last time, Tony has developed a great interest in soul matters. He has read a lot of information in so-called myths and legends. However, he really hasn't learned about the split soul from those books. Guyi stretched out his hand and slapped the green demon on the back. Suddenly, a strange and twisted soul appeared in front of everyone. Kinluo and Tony stared at the twisted soul. The latter was surprised and amazed, while the former was in deep thought. Of course, Kinluo was not thinking about the twisted soul. He was mainly recalling the power used by the Ancient One to shoot the Green Goblin out of his body. He could probably see that the palm strike of the Ancient One just now was not the power of magic, it was the power of the soul. She squeezed the Green Goblin out of Norman Osborn's body. But Kinluo still couldn't figure out the specifics. But he believed that as long as he was given a little time, he could succeed in stealing the skills. The Ancient One made another move at this time, turning one hand into a knife, and directly chopped the twisted soul and Norman Osborn's soul at the connection. Ah, ×2 Norman Osborn and the twisted soul, that is, the Green Goblin, screamed almost at the same time. Kinluo felt unbearable pain when he was burned by the flames of judgment, not to mention Norman Osborn directly splitting the soul in half like this. If Norman Osborn couldn't bear it, it's possible that he would die of pain. Fortunately, Norman Osborn's will is still strong. He survived the pain of soul splitting. Of course, negative effects such as tears and incontinence still exist, and he probably has a headache for a while. It's possible that it will last for a month or two, or a lifetime. Few people can say for sure about things related to the soul. Looking at Norman Osborn, who was almost dying, Kinlawo shook his head helplessly. If he died like this, then his efforts would be in vain. He raised his hand, and the blood turned into a red stream of light and merged into Norman Osborn's body, turning into pure vitality. The injuries on his body recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. Guyi showed an expression almost the same as Kinlawo's just now. Although he had seen this move a long time ago, it was still a little different to see it with his own eyes. In Guyi's view, this power of transforming blood into vitality is enough to be called a magical power. At this time, the Green Goblin seemed to have survived the pain of soul-splitting. The twisted soul quickly took shape. Gradually, it turned into the image of Norman Osborn wearing an exoskeleton devil mask. Damn it! Why is this happening? Why? I just died like this. Damn it! Why? The Green Goblin looked at his translucent hands. He seemed to understand the fact of his own death, and muttered to himself in disbelief. He had just been born, and he died like this. How could he be willing? But what if he was unwilling? In front of Kinlawo and Guyi, a Green Goblin's residual soul could not stir up any waves. However, at this moment, a voice was faintly heard in the Green Goblin's ears. Are you unwilling to die? A soul full of evil. Who is it? Who is talking? My name is Mephisto, the Lord of Hell. If you are unwilling to die like this, then make a soul contract with me. Give me your soul, and I will give you invincible power. The voice gradually became clear, especially the words of soul contract, like a brand, engraved into the Green Goblin's soul. At this moment, Kinlawo and Guyi seemed to sense something, and the expressions on their faces became a little strange. They looked at each other in tacit understanding, and the corners of their mouths rose slightly at the same time. Mephisto really chose a good target. Chapter 173 Flame Green Demon. Disdain. Kinlawo and Guyi just looked at the green demon quietly, just watching the wisps of hell breath spreading from him. But there was no intention to do anything. To be honest, Kinlawo really wanted to see what kind of expression Mephisto would have after seeing him and Guyi. Kinlawo also didn't understand it. Was Mephisto's brain pinched by the door? He dared to mess with souls so blatantly and treated them as air. However, the facts were not what Kinlawo thought. Mephisto was certainly not a fool, and his brain had never been pinched by the door. The reason for such a blunder? It can be said that the source is still Guyi. The space between hell and the human world has been blocked by Guyi. Mephisto finally opened a little space crack. As a result, he learned that Kinlawo had wiped out all of his sinful undead souls. Chapter 299. The people on the busy streets, through their valuable experience, knew very well that they should flee now. So in the blink of an eye, most of the pedestrians on the street were gone. Damn Peter Parker, how could it be so fast? Seeing that Spider-Man had ruined his plan, the Green Goblin gnashed his teeth in hatred. But there was nothing he could do. He could only flee again. However, at this moment, he suddenly felt a force of inertia coming, and the whole person almost flew off the flying skateboard. Chapter 171. The powerful and ruthless Black and Green Goblin barely stabilized his body. Looking down, he saw that the Batwing aircraft had been entangled by black spider silk at some point. On the other side, Spider-Man raised his arms and grabbed the spider silk tightly, stopping the Batwing aircraft in midair. You must know that although the speed of this Batwing aircraft cannot catch up with Tony's iron armor, it is also quite fast. Needless to say, the power contained in it, Spider-Man's operation of pulling the aircraft with his bare hands is not as shocking as Captain's pulling the helicopter with his bare hands on the surface, but the gold content is much higher. Damn Peter Parker. The Green Goblin gritted his teeth again, but because his teeth were severely damaged, this time, the Green Goblin actually bit off a tooth. Now time is short and things are urgent. The Green Goblin dare not be restricted. He immediately pulled out the Batwing on the Batwing aircraft. After the Batwing left the aircraft, it turned into a long knife. The Green Goblin swung the long knife and chopped directly at the spider silk. Swish! A tooth-grinding sound rang out. The long knife chopped the spider silk, but the scene of the Green Goblin's imagination of breaking did not appear, but instead splashed a spark. Suddenly, the Green Goblin was completely confused. What material is this spider silk made of? Even if it is made of steel bars, his knife is enough to cut it off. In fact, normally, Although the spider silk of the little spider is tough, it is not so exaggerated. The reason why it has the current strength is still relying on the blessing of venom. The Green Goblin wants to swing the knife and chop again, but how can Tony give him this opportunity? Even at this time, Tony has a lot of questions about the big change of the little spider. Raising his hand, Tony fired a full-power palm cannon. This time, Tony did not rush towards the Green Goblin, but directly bombarded his Batwing aircraft. Seeing this, the Green Goblin gritted his teeth, jumped off the aircraft before the palm cannon arrived. Boom! With a loud bang, the aircraft exploded directly in the air, turning into countless parts and flying. The Green Goblin landed in a mess. He did not choose to escape this time, but rushed straight to Spider-Man. Now he just wanted to kill this little spider who was in the way. However, Spider-Man was not panicked when he saw the Green Goblin attacking. The biggest blessing of venom for Spider-Man was not speed or strength. It was not a change in weapons, spider silk, it was a change in mentality. Even if Spider-Man in the venom state did not directly become an evil villain, he knew what it meant to be ruthless. Spider-Man did not hold back, he punched directly and hit the Green Goblin's arm hard. Crack, crack. The sound of metal and bones breaking at the same time rang out, and the Green Goblin's arm bent strangely. At the same time, the metal exoskeleton on his arm was completely deformed, and a fist mark was clearly printed on it. Damn it, how did this guy become so cruel? The severe pain hit the Green Goblin's heart, and he couldn't help but panic, especially after seeing Spider-Man's somewhat cold eyes. Tony was also incredible on the side. He looked at Spider-Man in amazement, feeling that this little guy had completely changed. He began to worry vaguely in his heart. Spider-Man didn't care about the emotional changes of the people around him. He took a step forward and directly hit the Green Goblin's abdomen with a knee strike. Puff. Blood and something unknown spurted out of the Green Goblin's mouth, and then the whole person was blown away. Spider-Man didn't say anything else. The Green Goblin must have broken at least 5, 6, 7 or 8 ribs. The Green Goblin, who fell to the ground, barely staggered to stand up. He opened his mouth and spurted out another mouthful of blood, as well as several teeth that were bitten off due to severe pain. Now the Green Goblin was really panicking. He didn't expect that Spider-Man would suddenly become so fierce, and he began to regret provoking the seemingly harmless guy. Spider-Man stepped forward again. He punched the Green Goblin's head fiercely. The speed was fast and hateful. If this was implemented, the Green Goblin would not be dead, but it would not be much different. However, at this critical moment, Tony rushed forward and grabbed Spider-Man's wrist. The huge force made Tony stagger and almost threw him out. Fortunately, with the help of the thrusters, Spider-Man's fist was stopped when it was still a few centimeters away from the Green Goblin. The wind from the fist lifted the Green Goblin's long hair. Looking at the black fist in front of him, the Green Goblin realized for the first time that death was so close to him. "Mr. Stark, why did you stop me?" Spider-Man turned around, and his cold eyes made Tony a little uncomfortable, although he still didn't know what happened to this little guy that made him change so much. But he still endured the dissatisfaction in his heart and said, "Peter, don't forget what you told me. You didn't let me kill him, but you clearly want to kill him." When Spider-Man heard this, his cold eyes were dazed. It seemed that he remembered something, but there was rage in his heart. Just when he wanted to break free from Tony's arm, the spider sense suddenly made him feel the crisis. He raised his head suddenly. Spider-Man saw the Green Goblin with a hideous and crazy smile on his face, and he took out a pumpkin bomb in his hand at some point. This pumpkin bomb is slightly different from the one used by the Green Goblin before. It is 1/3 smaller than the normal pumpkin bomb, and the material is also different, but the sense of crisis it brings is much stronger than the normal pumpkin bomb. This is a super pumpkin bomb, the Green Goblin's trump card. Spider-Man recognized at a glance that this bomb was the thing that made him embarrassed in the villa before. The anger in his heart surged. There was a hint of murderous intent in his eyes. He exerted force on his arm and shook Tony off at the same time. He rushed to the Green Goblin, grabbed the activated super pumpkin bomb, directly removed the Green Goblin's jaw, and then stuffed the super pumpkin bomb into the Green Goblin's mouth. The Green Goblin had very few teeth left, and now they were completely empty. "Damn it, Go to hell. Spider-Man kicked the Green Goblin out with a whip kick. The process sounds slow, but it actually only took 1 or 2 seconds. The Green Goblin flew backwards with a look of unwillingness on his face, unwilling to face death. Tony, who was thrown away, wanted to stop all of this from happening, but he was helpless. The Green Goblin died, and although he was unhappy, Tony accepted it. Don't forget where this is. There are residents and shops all around, and there are many pedestrians hiding inside. If the bomb explodes in the street, the consequences will be disastrous. Chapter 300. With the bonus of the black battlesuit, Spider-Man's speed has been greatly improved, and the whole person almost turned into a shadow and shuttled quickly in the jungle. If it weren't for the occasional joyful shouts, it would be difficult to see Spider-Man in the dark jungle, above the sky. Kinluo, who was watching these scenes with his mind, frowned slightly. Venom, or Riot, why did it appear at this time? Even if it's butterfly wings, it's a bit too outrageous, right? Kinluo opened his eyes and looked at the little spider in the woods. He secretly pondered the pros and cons in his heart. In fact, just when Spider-Man came into contact with the Venom, Kinluo noticed it. He originally planned to take action, but he still held back. Perhaps the attachment of Venom is not a bad thing for Spider-Man. At most, it will turn him black. It may be a terrible thing for others to turn black, but Spider-Man turns black. Kinluo's mind instantly flashed the scene of the first generation of Spider-Man dancing in the street. Hiss, it's really unbearable to watch. Chapter 170. A different Ancient One. Little Spider resolves the crisis after thinking again and again. Kinluo decided not to bother with it. After all, Venom is pretty easy to deal with. If you really want to deal with it, Kinluo doesn't even need to do anything. Johnny's Hellfire alone can make Venom feel like dying, but in order to avoid accidents, Kinluo decided to end this farce as soon as possible. He took out his phone, found the saved number of Ancient One, and dialed it directly. Ding, the call was just connected, but it was hung up directly. Then a spark portal appeared in front of Kinluo. Ancient One slowly walked out of the portal. Kinluo couldn't help but twitch his mouth when he saw it. Master Ancient One is worthy of being the Supreme Master. Such efficiency. It's amazing. But why did he hang up his phone? Didn't he ask what the situation was? Did Ancient One trust him so much? Suddenly, a strange idea came to Kinluo's mind. Could it be that Ancient One didn't answer the phone and came directly to save the phone bill? On second thought, this shouldn't be the case. Ancient One is the Supreme Mage, an old monster who has lived for thousands of years. How could he be short of this little money? However, as soon as the thought came to him, Kinluo couldn't control himself. Master Ancient One, you don't answer the phone. Do you want to save phone bills? Kinluo finally decided not to use emotional intelligence and asked directly. Hearing Kinluo's words, a trace of unnaturalness flashed in Ancient One's eyes. But she still answered very calmly, I'm just avoiding unnecessary waste. Tell me what you want to talk to me about. Is there a powerful enemy in the world that you can't solve? Why don't I feel it? It's confirmed. It's absolutely confirmed. She is changing the subject. Oh my goodness, I didn't expect the Supreme Mage to be so miserable! Exclamation mark. Kinluo roared wildly in his heart, and was even a little weirdly excited, but on the surface he was calm and said, Master Ancient One, I have encountered some tricky things here. There is a relatively good person, but due to his own reasons, he has developed an evil personality. If I take action, it will be a bit rough, and it is very likely that his soul will be destroyed directly. So I would like to ask you to expel his evil personality from his body, while retaining his original kind personality. After hearing Kinluo's story, Ancient One nodded slightly. No problem. It is not difficult to expel the evil personality, but you have to understand that the power of a person's soul is limited. If his personality is expelled from the body, it is very likely to cause his soul to be weak, thus shortening his life. Are you sure he wants this? Kinluo smiled helplessly and said, what else can I do? If his evil personality cannot be expelled, then I can only take action to deal with him. There is no way. Who has already started to attack the people around me. So either expel the evil personality or die. He has no choice. Ancient One nodded, and said with a little emotion, the person who provoked you is really pitiful. Let's go. After saying that, He waved his hand and closed the spark portal directly. The two of them rushed towards the direction where the Green Goblin fled at a very fast speed. At this time, the Green Goblin didn't know what kind of existence he was staring at, but now he is quite angry, because Tony caught up with him again. The two of them have already chased to the city center. Green Goblin has clearly realized that if he doesn't think of a way to get rid of this lingering Tony Stark, his fate will be quite miserable. Damn Tony Stark, you forced me to do this. Get ready to accept the devil's wrath. Green Goblin bit his back teeth, his eyes full of madness and ferocity. After barely avoiding Tony's palm cannon, Green Goblin flashed and rushed towards the nearest busy street. Tony's heart suddenly skipped a beat when he saw this scene. Although it is late now, there will still be many people in busy places. It is difficult to guarantee what crazy things this green bastard will do. However, Tony is helpless now. After all, this is already a city. It is difficult for him to use some powerful firepower, such as arc pulse cannons. Otherwise, it would really hurt 1,000 enemies and hurt tens of thousands by mistake. So now Tony can only increase the speed of the thrusters as much as possible. But the problem is that there are many small flaws in the new armor that have not been dealt with. As a result, Tony could not reach his usual maximum speed, and could only reach about 70% at most. Otherwise, the Green Goblin would have been beaten down by Tony long ago. So why would he have to toss for so long? Damn Kinluo, if you hadn't destroyed my armor, I would have dealt with that green bastard long ago. You big bastard. I don't believe that you don't know about such a big commotion. Damn bastard. Just watching the show, Tony cursed and shortened the distance between him and the Green Goblin again. Above the sky, Kinluo's mouth couldn't help twitching, and Guyi looked at him with a smile, saying nothing. Facts proved that Tony's worries were not redundant at all. After the Green Goblin rushed into the busy street, he directly took out 7 or 8 pumpkin bombs. He received the New Year's gift in advance. The Green Goblin left and activated all the pumpkin bombs directly, throwing them around. With the power of the pumpkin bombs, if all of them exploded, to say that this street was tragically dead and injured is an understatement. Damn lunatic, Tony cursed. After Jarvis calculated, the palm cannons were fired continuously, intending to detonate all the pumpkin bombs before they landed, minimize the harm as much as possible. However, at this moment, a black shadow suddenly jumped out. It was the little spider after being transformed by Venom. After the blessing of Venom, the little spider, whose speed increased rapidly, finally caught up with Tony and the Green Goblin. With the help of Spider Sense, the little spider accurately shot out spider silk to stick to those pumpkin bombs. Then a big windmill threw them all into the sky. The speed was so fast that the Green Goblin and Tony could not react. Boom boom boom, continuous flames appeared from the sky, as if fireworks were being set off. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.